professors, colleagues, and also the organizers.
Alaikum salam. You are welcome, sir. It is so nice
Thank
to
you.
have our scholars from Iran here in this meeting. This will be really an Indo-Iranian dialogue, inshallah.
This is the second round of, no, third round you can say.
Third round of this is,
First round we had in Delhi, second in
Yes,
Tehran.
Professor joined also before in the Tehran.
yeah.
And we had very fruitful deliberations.
I think I thought I met your professor in the Tehran, yeah? The second round. Interfaith dialogue between Iran and
I think
India.
we did not meet there.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yes.
Professor Rabbani, I think I have met you, no? No?
Yes, sure. I met you in last year when the Deputy Minister of the Culture, Iran and Deputy Minister of Culture visited at your center. I was there. Yes, I met you.
Yeah.
I sent a letter, also a formal letter for the second formal discussion. I'm waiting, maybe after Corona, inshallah.
Yeah. On one occasion, I met His Excellency, your ambassador also, in Delhi.
Yes, Dr. Chicken. Yes, yes. No, he went to the Iran. A few days before he went to Iran.
Salam alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Alaikum, how are you, Professor?
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And Professor Bhatt.
Yeah, I remember to have met you in
Excellency.
Tehran.
Salam.
In Tehran, we visited our Indian Culture Center also. And, we had very good discussion there. We also discussed how we can have further close cooperation between India and Iran.
Yeah.
I must say that Excellency, Mr. Rabbani is doing very well.
Yeah, no.
He has been very active and
Not so more active than you. Professor Kumar is very active and successful. They have too much.
Yeah.
Your kindness, sir.
For cooperation, collaborative effort is required, and everyone concerned has to be active.
Yeah.
We have now Swamiji also joining us.
Sure. Good afternoon.
Namaskar.
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 How are you?
Fine.
So we have many religious luminaries also joining us in our dialogue. It is really an interfaith dialogue. How many scholars are here from Iran?
From Iran, 4 schools.
Huh?
Yeah.
Four
schools. Yeah. But also, one Iranian scholar is staying in Delhi, Dr. Aligarh.
In Delhi University or Jamia Millia?
He's also very famous, but another is in the Tehran. Not one of them is standing, but three of them are still there.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Today we welcome all our guests who are distinguished scholars, faith leaders and intellectuals in this international webinar on a very important topic of today's world, the foundation of an interfaith understanding, views of Iranian and Indian thinkers. At the very beginning, we request to all our guests to conclude in 10 minutes due to tight time constraint. So to start with, first of all, I invite Qari Abdul Moeed Saab to recite a few verses from the Holy Quran. Qari Abdul Moeed Saab.
السلام عليكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك وقنا عذاب النار ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخزيته وما للظالمين من أنصار ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Thank you, Qari Abdul Moeed Saab. After the recitation of these holy verses of the Quran, I must admit that this important webinar is being organized by Aligarh Interfaith Center in collaboration with M.U.College, Iran Culture House and Center for Interfaith Dialogue, Islamic Culture and Communication Organization, Iran. So to begin with, now I very humbly, I respectfully, I request Professor Ali Muhammad Naqvi Saab, a very eminent scholar in interfaith studies and director Aligarh Interfaith Center and President M.U.College, to present the welcome address. Professor Ali Muhammad Naqvi Saab.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It is a pleasure for me to welcome distinguished faith leaders, and university scholars in this online program. First of all, I welcome the Honorable Cultural Counselor of Iran, Dr. Muhammad Ali Rabbani, who is presiding this function, and Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, Janab Mehdi Tasbini. They are both our esteemed guests and also hosts of this interfaith webinar. Here we have a galaxy of very eminent faith leaders. Swami Shantatmananji is one of the top leaders of Ramakrishna Mission. Swami Hariprasad Ji, founder of Shri Vishnu Mohan Foundation, Chennai. Swami Viru Prakash Ji of Art of Living, and Acharya Lokesh Muni Ji, the world-renowned Jain leaders. They will join us, and it is great privilege for us that such a senior Christian clergy leader as Archbishop Sarkisian of Iran has already joined us. And another Sikh prominent personality, Sardar Dr. Tarlochal Singh, who was the chairman of the Minority Commission. He will also be one of the participants of this program. And Janab Salman Chishti is the very dynamic Gadi Nashin of Dargah Khaja Muhyiddin Chishti. All will be here. I welcome those who have joined and those who will join. I welcome them in party. It is our privilege that the keynote address will be delivered by one of the most respected philosophers of India, Professor S.R. Bhatt, who is the president of Indian Philosophical Congress and custodian of the golden tradition of the spiritual philosophy of India. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Here we have distinguished representation of scholars and intellectuals of Iran and India. We have Professor Abhay Singh, Cultural Counselor of India in Iran, and Janab Musa Raza Saab and Professor Akhtarul Wase, two top Muslim intellectuals from India. From Iran, we have Dr. Baqir Talib Tarai, Dr. Rasul Rasulipur, and Dr. Alizadeh Musawi of Iran. Thus, this is a genuine Indo-Iran interfaith dialogue. Here we come to the important point, the position of India and Iran as two major civilizations of the East and their common mission. Though all humanity is one and the human culture is common, nevertheless, in the last 500 years, East and West have become symbolic of spiritual and material culture. One focuses on economic material progress and the other on the human perfection. This spiritual and interfaith perspective unite India and Iran. This webinar is a symbolic of this cultural unity. But this unity is in diversity. The essence of interfaith is not to overlook the diversity, but to celebrate it. There is a basic unity of purpose, but the diversity in approach about the foundations of interfaith understanding, which is the main theme of this webinar. And this is clearly discernible in the thought and works of Indian and Iranian thinkers. The foundation of interfaith understanding in Indian dominant thought is perspective of monism, Wahdatul Wujud, while the basis in the dominant Muslim and Semitic thought is the perspective of monotheism, Nigarshe Tawhidi. In Vedic perspective, the basis of interfaith understanding is summed up in the famous statement of Rigveda, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. All the world is one family. That is the principle of unity of mankind. In the Vedantic perspective, the principle of monism, Wahdatul Wujud, is the foundation of interfaith unity. Famous Vedantic formula, Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that, To Usti. And also everything is that, Hame Ust. Logically result in that everything is right. Aqeeda Hame Usti, Basle Hame Durusti, Wa Hame Rasti Min Jamat. Many other teachings like Jain teachings of Ahimsa, yogic focus on Shanti, yoga being above religious distinctions, constitute other foundations of interfaith unity in the perspective of Indian religion and thinkers. The perspective of Islamic and Semitic thought is a bit distinct. In the Islamic and Iranian thought, following points are focused and may constitute the foundation of the interfaith understanding. They are first, the concept of unity of creator, the Tawheed. Second, the divine concept of divine attributes, general grace, Rahmaniyat Aam, love for all, Lutf Ilahi, justice for all, Adle Umumi. Third foundation is the unity of creation and mankind, which flows from the concept of the unity of creator. All men are progeny of Adam and Eve. Fourth foundation is the concept of the unity of God's religion. The principle of Nabuwat, the concept of unity of God's religion, that God sent his message to all nations and all prophets preached the same message. However, an important point is that while the Indian religions use the term unity of religion, the prevalent expression in Semitic religion is the dialogue and understanding. The reason is that one is inclusivist and the other is exclusivist. Our goal is the same, to create an atmosphere of peaceful coexistence of religions. This is the noble goal which we all are pursuing and on which rests the global peace. In the serious deliberation that will take place, many such foundations of creating such understanding will be explored by top religious leaders and intellectuals of India and Iran. With these words, I again welcome all our guests and the viewers on behalf of Aligarh Interfaith Center, Iran Culture House, M.U.College, Aligarh, and the Center for Interfaith Dialogue of Tehran. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ali Muhammad Naqvi Saab. Professor Naqvi, in his address, in nutshell, presented the whole perspective of India and Iran, the whole perspective of religion, Semitic religions, Indian religions, and in Iran and Islam. So now I request our host, our guest, as well as our host, Hujjatul Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mehdi Taskhiri, a very eminent scholar and director of the Center for Interfaith Dialogue, Islamic Culture and Communication Organization, Iran, to join us and present the inaugural address. Ma dar khidmate Hazrat Ali Hujjatul Islam Muhammad Mehdi Taskhiri istidwa mi kunim ke khutbah iftitahiyya ra irad be farmaid. Hujjatul Islam Muhammad Taskhiri.
Khayri Mamnoon. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Professor Ali Muhammad Naqvi, Director, Conover Dialogue, Aligarh Muslim University. His Holiness Swami Shantant Shantant Mananji, President, Ramakrishna Mission. His Holiness Acharya Dr. Lakshmani, founder, residents, Ahimsa Vishwa Bharati, Archbishop Sibo Sarkisian, Bishop of Armenia Church, Iran, Professor Bhatt, President of Indian Philosophical Congress and Secretary of the Indian Council Philosophical Search, Dr. Rabbani, Culture, Counselor of Islamic Republic of Iran in India. Medium and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
من بقیه صحبت رو ضبط شده دارم به انگلیسی میفرستم.
In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Dear sirs, I would like to begin by expressing my thanks to the Office of the Cultural Counselor of the Islamic Republic of Iran in India and the Aligarh Muslim University for organizing this scientific webinar. Dear sirs, dialogue is a fundamental principle and a pillar in the sustainability of human life, and it is of value when it is resorted to for arriving at some truth, throwing light on different views and parts of the puzzle with regards to truth. A dialogue that is not directed towards this valuable goal is merely a blind debate, and not only it fails to help humanity, but also will result in more confusion. Religions are the voice of human conscience and nature, and their purpose is to reveal the undiscovered human essence, so that each human being can move ahead in their life in the midst of ambiguities and darkness, and be on the right path and stay away from misguidance. The logic of the Holy Scripture of the Muslims, that is the Holy Quran, emphasizes the same when it says, "Know one another, and indeed the most noble of you is in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you, and the ones who are closer to truth." If human societies would have relied on their religious teachings, security and peace would have prevailed everywhere today. However, unfortunately, what governs today is extremism caused by human whims, which is imposed on human societies in the name of religion and truth. It means the objective behind what is being forced in the name of religion, defending truth, is to achieve and ensure evil personal interests. Imam Ali, the first Imam of the Shiites, who is a lofty human personality, describes this human condition in these words: "True word is something behind which are hidden false intentions. The goal of religions is to guide humanity, and that does not eliminate anyone." The founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah Alayh, says, "The intention of Islam is to make perfect human beings, and this includes all humanity. It has no kinship with any particular community. It has no kinship with the East or the West, with the North or the South, with no one. It is a divine religion. God Almighty is the God of all, not the God of the Easterners and Muslims or Westerners or Christians or Jews. This is not the case. He is everywhere, everyone's God. That is to say, Islam has come to make all human beings into something it wants them to be. Today, a lot of hue and cry are made, especially by the world-dominating powers, giving everyone the hope for a better life in the coming future. But unfortunately, when we look at the results, we find nothing but wars, illegitimate occupation, massacres, displacements, and homelessness. The reason is what was already mentioned. Instead of using logic and reason in the form of dialogue and exchange of views aimed at human development and truth, these bullies use weapons of mass destruction and chemical and nuclear weapons to seek hegemony and plunder the natural resources of others, and to enforce their own views, religion, and attitude on other religions and thoughts under the guise of universality and true deception, which will never lead us to any fruitful end. Defending human rights, justice, women's rights, democracy, eliminating weapons of mass destruction and nuclear weapons, respecting the ideas and people and the independence of nations can only be done when those who claim them are truthful and seek to implement and fulfill them through dialogue. Today in the Islamic Republic of Iran, and after 4 decades, we have very good experience in the area of dialogue with different heavenly and non-heavenly religions, which has resulted in more familiarity, removing ambiguities, and getting closer to truth. During the course of several dialogue with Indian thinkers and philosophers, many misunderstandings have been removed, and we have found such concepts as worship, love, justice, peace, security, cooperation, and assistance in creating a new human civilization to be based on high human values and the teachings of Eastern religions. I hope that these meetings and dialogues will serve as great mediums for arriving at truth and in establishing justice and paving the path for man's salvation by addressing the existing commonalities and throwing light on them. I once again thank the honorable thinkers and professors who listened patiently, and also express my gratitude to the organizers of this webinar who worked tirelessly to make this scientific gathering possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hujjatul Islam, Muhammad Mehdi Tashkiri Sahab, for your valuable thoughts. You have pointed out very beautifully that interfaith understanding and dialogue is a must for the establishment of a just social order and just social system. And you have also pointed out that after the 4 decades of the revolution of Iran, Iran has succeeded considerably in moving forward with these ideas. So now I request another important faith leader, His Holiness Swami Shantatmanand Ji, President Ramakrishna Mission Delhi. हम शांतात्मानंद जी से निवेदन करते हैं कि वो तशरीफ लाएं और अपने ख्यालात और अपने विचारों से हम सबको मुस्तफीद करें. स्वामी शांतात्मानंद जी, क्योंकि इनको कहीं जाना था इसलिए उनको हम पहले बुला रहे हैं.
ओम असतो सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय. Om Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, and from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. First of all, the efforts of the organizers, namely the Aligarh Interfaith Center and M.U.College, as well as the Intercultural Dialogue, Tehran and Iran Culture House, their efforts in organizing this beautiful webinar on interfaith, it needs to be really praised. It's really worthy of praise. It's a wonderful effort. Now we know all the views on interfaith from the point of view of Hinduism largely rest on this central idea, Ekam Sat Vipra Baudha Vatanti. Truth is one, sages call it variously, or wise men call it variously. So this is the general trend or the general understanding of interfaith dialogue, interfaith understanding, not dialogue, interfaith understanding in Hinduism. So all our efforts have largely been on this area. That means that is how we know for hundreds of years, or even more than that, for thousands of years. I think the first Christian missionary from Father Thomas, Saint Thomas, he came something that, just even a few years after the passing away, crucifixion of Christ. So from that time onward, the followers of different religions have lived very peacefully and beautifully in India without being persecuted, without being subject to any great harm or difference of opinion or being subject to any kind of bad treatment. So that has been the tradition of this country for thousands of years, so to say. But this was largely based on this idea. But these ideas were given a great fillip, because according to Hinduism, religious personalities, those are to give any direction, they appear from time to time. Certainly, a great individual by name Ramakrishna. He was born in 1836.
So the question was, how does that, or does it lead to a contemplation?
Please, can you mute others?
Would elaborate on this.
Can you hear me?
First of all, I would like
all the guests are requested to mute their microphones, except the speaker.
Yeah.
Told us that Sama is the Viraj.
Because some other voices are also
I
coming.
think they are listening to some other program, some radio program or something. That's why the problem.
So this earth, which is to the heaven, or at least not to the heaven, at least to
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Sama,
I request all the participants to please mute your microphones except the speaker.
Yeah. So, this idea was largely because of this idea of Ekam Sat Vipra Bodha Vadanti. But Hinduism also says, time to time, over a period of hundreds of years or so, a new avatar, a new messenger of God comes to give a new direction to, so to say, to the whole movement. So in 1836, a great mystic named Sri Ramakrishna was born. He again reiterated the same idea, but in his own simple, rustic language. Because from rural Bengal, he was academically not educated in that sense, but he was a person of extraordinary wisdom. His idea was, as many faiths, so many paths. As many faiths, so many paths. And he said, all genuine attempts of religious practices ultimately lead to the same goal. He said, let us not worry about what happens at the end. Let us really manage our own paths and our own attempts so that we all reach the ultimate goal. So his emphasis on religion was, religion is realization. So he was one of the greatest saints to proclaim this idea of harmony. But his message was that this harmony is to be realized not through words, not through talks, not through interpolating one idea into the other, but rather by experience. He says the main purpose of life is to realize that ultimate truth or the transcendental reality. And that is done by practice, by intense sadhana. He said, when you reach the ultimate, when you realize the truth, you'll find that we are all at the same place, all experiencing the same truth. So it is only this idea of Sri Ramakrishna which Swami Vivekananda gave a wonderful shape, and he proclaimed it at the World Parliament of Religions held in Chicago in 1893. For the first time, a religious leader appeared on a world platform to proclaim the real meaning and purpose of religious harmony. So, to that whole, about some few thousands of American audience, he gave a very wonderful idea, and he said, see, why there is variance. He gave a beautiful story, and that captivated the imagination of the audience. What was the story? He said, there was once a frog in a well. It had not seen anything outside. The frog thought that the well was the biggest place in the world, and that there was nothing bigger than that. One day, by accident, another frog from the sea fell into the well, and the frog of the well asked him, who are you? You are a stranger. You get out from here. Then the sea frog said, no, my friend, I have come and fallen by accident. It was not intentional. Then, the frog well is asking, where from are you? He says, I am from the sea. How big is the sea? Is it bigger than my well? So from one side of the well to the other, it takes a big jump. And he says, what are you saying? How can you compare the sea with the well? The sea is so vast, I can take you to the sea and show you. But the frog in the well said, nothing doing. You have come to occupy my well. You get out, there can be nothing bigger than my well. And the whole audience burst into laughter. He said, there is a reason. The Hindu sits in his own little well and thinks that the whole world is little well. The Christian sits in his own little well and thinks that the whole world is his own little well. And similarly, the Mohammedan sits in his own little well and thinks that the world consists of his own well. So he says, much has been said about the religious doctrine of the variance and all that. But he says, very soon, upon the banner of every religion will be written, in spite of resistance, harmony and peace, and not dissension. So this idea he proclaimed beautifully, and he said that there is a tremendous need for this harmony, and this should be achieved largely through dialogue. In several places, he has talked about his own idea of universal religion. Particularly, I would just briefly mention two ideas, because I think I have 3-4 minutes left. He says, according to him, the universal religion means that is the religious consciousness of the entire humanity. That was his first idea of religion, universal religion, in which he says, universal religion means the religious consciousness of the entire humanity. In different places, it manifests in different ways as different religions. So he says, the religious consciousness of the entire humanity is what is called a universal religion, and in different places, it manifests itself differently as various religions. And in that context, it also says, just as science, religion is also one or unity. And he said that, various religions are not contradictory, but are complementary. They are phases of one eternal religion. He said various religions are phases of one eternal religion. The transcendental spiritual consciousness, man's struggle to experience it and go beyond its limitations and attain true freedom, is what is called the real religious struggle, or the meaning for that. He says the humanity's common spiritual heritage is that kind of a transcendental experience or a transcendental reality. So, in another place, he talks about, again, a universal religion. Here he says it's a sum total of all the religious ideas or the various religions of the world, something like a United Nations. He says the sum total of all the religions in the world is what he calls as universal religion. They say that they should coexist, and we should recognize the unique features of each religion, and we should also recognize the right to retain them. So he says the whole world the world of universal religion is like a garden where there are various flowers. So, it's a beautiful idea. Otherwise, if in a garden, if you have only one flower in the entire garden, how ugly it will look or how uninteresting it would look. So he says the various regions of the world are like the flowers in a different garden. In a garden, various flowers, and that is what adds beauty to the religious pursuits. And then he says, again he says, in this idea also, the different religions are not contradictory to each other, but they are complementary. And then he says, there should be a dynamic, free interaction between religions, and that is, possible only through dialogue. The dynamic interaction between various religions, and that is possible through dialogue. So in that context, he says, I accept all religions as true. I go to the church and pray with the Christians. I go to the mosque and pray with the Muslims. I go to the temple and there also offer worship. I feel there is no conflict. Not only that, let there be any number of new ideas, new varieties of religion also emerge, but I welcome all of them because there is so much of scope for variety in our approach. Ultimately, if you understand this central idea, religion is essentially our pursuit of something deeper, abiding, something which is because we need peace and happiness in our individual life as well as in the life of the society. When we approach religion with this idea, there's hardly any scope for any disagreement or dissension or fight, because all the followers would be rather seriously pursuing their own goal of reaching a very exalted state of existence. They'll be seeking for their own realization, and there'll be hardly any scope for any disharmony or fight. I think, this is what all of us should work together and tell our own followers, there is no need to go elsewhere. You can stick to your own path, but always constantly remember that there can be any approaches, any number of approaches to the ultimate. Disagreeing with that idea would be disagreeing with our own ultimate God or ultimate truth. So I think, with these few words, I would like to once again thank the organizers for this beautiful webinar. And I think we should all keep meeting and talking and discussing again and again. And not only that, we should take this message down below to our own followers so that ultimately we can create a better world, a more peaceful world where all of us can, the entire humanity can live in peace and harmony in a meaningful way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swami Shantatmananji, for your beautiful ideas, for your valuable ideas. You have reminded us about Swami Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda and his sermon of World Parliament held in Chicago. And you also reminded us of the famous idea of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa, as many faiths, so many paths, and religion is realization. So now after these beautiful ideas of His Holiness Swami Shantatmananji, I respectfully request Professor S.R. Bhatt, President, Indian Philosophical Congress and ex-chairman, Indian Council of Philosophical Research, ICPR, to join us and deliver the keynote address. Professor S.R. Bhatt.
Thank you. I congratulate the different organizations and other intellectual luminaries who have organized this very beautiful, timely needed and significant webinar on interfaith dialogue. In fact, religion has been one of the most important manifestation of human consciousness. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Religiosity is built in human nature, something intrinsic to human nature. And therefore, it has exercised unmitigated influence on our modes of thinking as also our ways of living. So we cannot do away with the religion. There is no choice between having religion and not having religion. We have to have religion. But what sort of religion should we have? And what should be our understanding of religion? That is most important. Human existence in this mundane world is finite and is imperfect. There is always a feeling of vanity in life, evanescence in life, valuelessness in life. And therefore, we find that there is loss of peace, there is pain and suffering, there are many hazards and hardships. We human beings try to remove them, overcome them, but we find sometimes helpless. And therefore, we resort to some transcendental, suprahuman force, which is manifested in the form of a religion. So, religion has come to stay in human life. In spite of tremendous success of science and technology, well, these could not replace religion. The point, therefore, is that religiosity is built in our nature. We have to reckon with it, and we have to see as to how it can serve us for the purpose for which it has been put to use, put to exercise. Well, we do recognize that religion has played a significant role to supplement human effort, human enterprises. I think there is some disturbance.
Yeah. I request all the I very humbly request all the participants to mute your microphones except the speaker. Huh? Acha. I request Acharya Lokesh Muniji to please mute your microphone.
So, religion has come to supplement human efforts. But it is our responsibility to see to it that the role of religion is properly put to use. We resort to religion to seek succor and solace. We resort to religion to bring about human transformation, and through human transformation, social and cosmic transformation. And therefore, we find that in our struggle for existence, religion can play a vital role. It has played in the past, but unfortunately, as already been pointed out, we have many havocs and hardships caused by religion. In fact, they are not caused by religion. They are caused by wrong understanding, wrong use, misuse of religiosity. We should therefore make a distinction between religion and sectarianism. When we talk of inter-religious strife or struggles, conflicts, in fact, they are not inter-religious, they are inter-sectarian. No religion will talk in terms of conflict. No religion will say that there should be hatred. No religion should say that there must be disharmony, etc. in the society. Well, religion has been invented. I would use the word invented. It is invented by humankind for betterment of human existence. for betterment of cosmic existence, for total wellness, as Lord Buddha in his first sermon to his 5 disciples said, Bahujan Hitaya, Bahujan Sukhaya, for the wellness of the entire cosmos, for the happiness of the entire cosmos. So that is the purpose of religion, and therefore misuse of religion has to be thwarted, and it's a responsibility of religious leaders, those who are well steeped in religious scriptures, to point out to the misled humanity that real purpose of religion is to bring about harmony, to bring about love, friendship, cooperation, etc. All virtues which humankind aspires for. Well, it is religion has to bring about spread of those virtues and eradicate vices in themselves, or vices brought about in the name of religion. In fact, so this sort of distortion in religiosity, aberration in religiosity has to be checked, and this can be done only by knowledgeable person. And therefore, I would suggest that the role of religion has to be revisited. And what I suggest is that we should have a study of not religious scriptures. For religious scriptures, we should study the basic tenets which are enshrined in those religious scriptures. So we should not be just a study of scriptures, but scriptures about the scriptures, the contents of those scriptures. Every scripture of every faith has some ideas and ideals which are valuable, which are true, good, and beautiful. And therefore, I would suggest that there should be study about religions, not study of religion, not theological, but a philosophical study, a conceptual study. And for that, because education is the sole panacea for our sufferings and our infirmities. So we should have, therefore, such educational curricula wherein the true spirit of all religions is reflected. So it's not religious study, therefore, but a study about religion, I would like to emphasize. I am happy to note that our new education policy is giving emphasis on that. Indian new education policy, that we should have a comparative study of religion, so that all that is valuable in every religion is brought to fore and is made known to young children from their primary school level itself. Unfortunately, because of some wrong understanding of religious tenets, our psyche has got perverted. And we have become, and it was referred to also, well, there is orthodoxy, there is dogmatism, there is fundamentalism, and all this is leading to bloodshed. Well, no religion would talk in terms of bloodshed. It is anti-religious to talk of disharmony, to talk of enmity, to talk of conflict, to talk of violence. It is against the very spirit of religion. But unfortunately, we are doing this in the name of religion. So, in fact, this sort of aberration has to be cured. We find that religion has been of great use in spiritual and moral upliftment. Spirituality means treating all as equal. Self-sameness all are of intrinsic value, all are of equal worth, all are should be treated with dignity and respect. This is spirituality. And spirituality, the essence of spirituality is morality. Morality is the very heart of spirituality, and moral values stand for inculcation of virtues and eradication of all vices. Well, it is the aim and goal of a religion to bring about a virtuous society, a vrati samaj, a virtuous society which we now call as civil society. And this is a very important task of religion. Religion not only brings about moral and religious transformation, it also gives rise to psychological satisfaction in the struggle for existence. When we feel that we are exhausted and we are helpless, then religion comes to our help and guides us. Mahatma Gandhi used to say, Gandhiji was always, whenever he faced any conflict, he would visit Bhagavad Gita and we'll find a solution therefrom. Well, same can be said about all the basic scriptures of the religions of the world. So this sort of psychological satisfaction and physical comfort we get from religion, I think we have to restore that spirit of religion and do away with all sorts of distortions. The core of religion is not rites and rituals. Of course, rites and rituals may have their value. We don't deny that. But the essence of spirituality is love, friendship, cooperation, mutual caring and sharing. Well, this is a religion. And every religion has emphasized this thing. So we have to go back to the core and give very little place to the peripheral, that is the rites and rituals. Rites and rituals may differ from one religion to another religion. Let them be there, but then we have to transcend them also and go to the core and inner essence, and we'll find that there is fundamental unity among the basic spirit of all religions. So this has been the teaching of seers and sages of India right from the Vedic times. Swami of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta Ashram pointed out the Vedic saying, Ekam Sat Vipraha Baudha Vadanti. So, see, reality is one, but same reality can be experienced differently and can be expressed also differently. So we therefore can follow what the Jaina tradition says, Anekantavada, religious is reality is multifaceted, and you may apprehend one facet, others may apprehend another facet. There can be multiple facets and multiple approach to the same reality, and therefore there should not be any dogmatic understanding of the nature of reality. Any dogmatic understanding will vitiate our mind. And if our mind is vitiated, our conduct also will get vitiated. So what is needed is Kushala Chitta, a virtuous mind, virtuous consciousness. And if there is Kushala Chitta, there will always be Kushal Charya. Samyak Drashti and Samyak Gyan will definitely lead to Samyak Charitra. This is the three jewels of the Jaina tradition. And this idea has been highlighted very much in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita says that whosoever approaches me in whatever form, I value it, I give credence to it. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhakta shraddhaya artuvichati tasya tasya achilam shraddham tameva vidyamyam. And therefore, it is also said that in rainy water falls from sky, akashat pattam toyam, but it goes to ultimately the same sea. Or another saying is there, cows are of multi-hued, different colors, but the milk is the same, white color. And therefore, you may have different religions. They provide richness to humanity. They are not something to be denigrated. There should be, because as in Hanuman Natak, which Vivekananda in Chicago Parliament address, Ruchi Nam Vechityat. We have different mindsets. We have different, psyche. And therefore, depending upon mindset or upon our psyche, upon our likes, we may choose this path or that path. But ultimately, all paths lead to the same goal. And the earlier speaker also pointed out that summit is the same, but pathways are different, and one may choose this pathway or that particular pathway. And therefore, this is the Indian response to religiosity. Further, Indian thinkers always pointed out that we should never be dogmatic in our approach, and always we should try to know the truth through dialogue, through exchange of ideas. And our sages and thinkers have developed a particular methodology of dialogue. It's known as Vada Vidhi, and there are several texts written on how to conduct a dialogue. A dialogue in which different viewpoints can be put forth with the proper perspective, and there can be a sort of symbiosis of different viewpoints, so that we can arrive at a truth. Well, in a dialogue, there has not to be any feeling of superiority or inferiority. Well, the only motive is to arrive at the truth. And the truth is that it is one and the same, but approaches may be different. Finally, I would like to point out that we should have such dialogues more often, not only among the intellectuals. Masses should also be involved, and therefore there should be proper dissemination of the outcome of such dialogue. This dissemination could be through mass media, or through repetition of the dialogue, or we can have some sort of such small monographs in different languages, in a simple language, where masses can be told about the fundamental unity of all religions. And if this is done, then definitely the world will be a nice place to live in. So finally, I would like to say, therefore, there is no need to purify religion. Religion is already pure. There is a need to purify sectarianism. And a sect is to be differentiated from religion. A sect has limited value, limited purpose, but it is religion which is which has the ultimate value, and therefore religiosity has to be cultivated. And to cultivate religiosity means to have a change of our mindset and transformation. Education, therefore, is needed, and it is not informative education. We have not just to inform that what Hinduism says, what Christianity says, what Islam says. It should be transformative education, that how we can transform our mindset so that we may have peaceful coexistence we may have fruitful cooperation, we may have mutual caring and sharing, and we can establish this society as worthy of living. And we use the term heaven. Heaven should not be somewhere transcendental. Heaven should be brought about here itself in this world. Let the world therefore be peaceful. Let there be wellness in the world, and it is again, I would say, responsibility of religious leaders in particular, and other intellectuals also, other scholars who are well steeped in the religious scriptures, to bring about this fundamental unity of all religions and also of entire cosmos. Swamiji, I think, refer to that we say Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. Everything is Brahma. Everything is one and the same. Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi. Well, all are one and equal. I think Professor Ali Muhammad Naqvi Sahib already referred to some of such statements contained in Indian scriptures. So this sort of respect for all and recognition of all as worthy of acceptance should be there. And I, while concluding, thank the organizers for this very beautiful, very timely also, because we find that all is not well with the existential scenario all over the world. Well, we have not only conflicts and stripes, and we also have some sort of a jealousy, and more often we are guided by ignorance. The present calamity, from where it has come, we don't know who is responsible for that, but this virus, coronavirus, has affected terribly humankind. Many casualties have taken place. This is because of our ignorance, and because we do not care for others, for our narrow selfish considerations. Well, we misuse science, we exploit nature, and for this we take a shelter of religion, but religion would never teach all these things. So let us therefore have sanity, and if there can be sanity in humankind, definitely the world will be a nice place to live in. So I therefore thank the organizers for this very wise enterprise, and hope that it gets the outcome gets disseminated. Let there be some concrete outcome, and it could be in the form of some publications, and other mass media also can be taken help of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor S.R. Bhatt, for your valuable thoughts and valuable speech. Yeah, you have beautifully said that there is no option of whether we should have religion or not. The question is which kind of religion is it should be a religion of God or the religion of Satan. All the vices are in fact due to the wrong interpretation of religions. So thank you, Professor S.R. Bhatt. Now we request His Holiness Acharya Dr. Lokesh Muniji Maharaj. He is an eminent Jain faith leader and founder president of Ahimsa Vishwa Bharati. So I request Dr. Lokesh Muniji Maharaj to express his valuable views.
सबसे पहले तो मैं अलीगढ़ इंटरफेथ सेंटर को, अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी को और प्रोफेसर नकवी साहब को बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद देता हूं कि उन्होंने इतने सुंदर विषय पर और इंडो ईरान इंटरफेथ डायलॉग पे इतने सुंदर वक्ताओं को एक मंच पर एकत्रित किया है। मुझसे पूर्व पूज्य स्वामी शांतात्मानंद जी ने, और खासकर मैं प्रोफेसर भट्ट को जो सुन रहा था, मुझे यूं लग रहा था कि जो कुछ मुझे बोलना था वो सब कुछ बोला जा चुका है। अब केवल इसी बात को दोहराना या रिपीटेशन। सचमुच में आज पूरी दुनिया को किसी चीज की जरूरत है सबसे अधिक, तो मेरी समझ में वो इंटरफेथ डायलॉग की जरूरत है। मैं जिस जैन धर्म का प्रतिनिधित्व करता हूं, उसका एक श्लोक है, परस्परो ग्रहो जीवा नाम, यानी कि हमारी पूरी दुनिया ये एक दूसरे पर आधारित है और एक दूसरे का सहयोग करके हम इस दुनिया को खुशहाल बना सकते हैं, खूबसूरत बना सकते हैं, इस धरती पर स्वर्ग को उतार सकते हैं। मैं पूर्व में वक्ताओं ने जो कहा उसका समर्थन करते हुए यही निवेदन करना चाहूंगा कि धर्म हमें जोड़ना सिखाता है, तोड़ना नहीं सिखाता। धर्म के क्षेत्र में हिंसा, घृणा, भय और नफरत का कोई स्थान हो नहीं सकता। हम अपने अस्तित्व की तरह दूसरों के अस्तित्व को स्वीकार करना सीखें। मेरी दृष्टि में यहीं से अहिंसा का शुभारंभ होता है। हम अपने विचारों की तरह दूसरों के विचारों का आदर करना सीखें। अभी प्रोफेसर भट्ट साहब जैन धर्म के एक सिद्धांत अनेकांत दर्शन की चर्चा कर रहे थे। अनेकांत का अर्थ ही है, मैंने एक जगह कहा भी है कि विरोधी विचारों को सुन के मन में खेद नहीं हो, और अनेकांत का उपासक आग्रह में कैद नहीं हो। मानव मानव में मतभेद स्वाभाविक है, किंतु मतभेद होने पर भी मन का भेद नहीं हो। लोकतंत्र में मतभेद को विकास का माध्यम माना गया है, किंतु मतभेद जब मन भेद का रूप धारण करता है तब समस्याएं उत्पन्न होती है। मैं इस डायलॉग के माध्यम से निवेदन करना चाहूंगा, हम अपने अस्तित्व की तरह दूसरों के अस्तित्व को स्वीकार करें, अपने विचारों की तरह दूसरों के विचारों का आदर करें, अपने धर्म का ईमानदारी पूर्वक पालन करें, किंतु दूसरे धर्मों का भी आदर करना सीखें। यही भारत की बहुलतावादी संस्कृति है। अनेकता में एकता जो भारत की मौलिक विशेषता कही जाती है, सर्वधर्म सद्भाव जिसका मूल मंत्र है, आज हम सबका दायित्व है उस बहुलतावादी संस्कृति के संरक्षण संवर्धन का। और पूरी दुनिया में इस मंच से स्वामी जी ने और भट्ट साहब ने जो कहा, मैं अपने शब्दों में ये कहना चाहूंगा, मेरी समझ में जो सबसे बड़ी गड़बड़ हो रही है वो ये है कि हम धर्म और संप्रदाय को एक कर रहे हैं। मेरी दृष्टि में धर्म के 3 आयाम हैं। पहला उपासना। उपासना की विधि अलग अलग हो सकती है, किंतु आज मौजूदा दुनिया में सबसे बड़ी कठिनाई ये हुई है कि केवल उपासना को ही धर्म मान लिया गया। मंदिर में गई, घंटा बजाया, प्रभु मोरे अवगुण चितना धरो, समदर्शी है नाम तुम्हारो, चाहे तो पार करो, और समझते हैं आज के पाप सारे साफ और कल से फिर वही घोड़ा और वही मैदान। मुनि महाराज के चरण स्पर्श किए, गंगा में डुबकी लगाई। मैं फिर कहूंगा, मैं उपासना का विरोधी नहीं हूं। नमाज पढ़ी, मैं किसी का विरोधी नहीं हूं, किंतु इतना अवश्य कहना चाहूंगा, इसका जो मूल हार्द है, अगला कदम होना चाहिए हमारे जीवन में नैतिक और चारित्रिक मूल्यों का समावेश। और धर्म का तीसरा आयाम जो है वो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है, वो है जीवन में अध्यात्म का अवतरण। क्योंकि जब तक अध्यात्म का अवतरण नहीं होता है तब तक मैं और पर का भेद बना रहता है, और जब अध्यात्म का स्पर्श होता है तो स्व और पर का भेद स्वतः मिट जाता है, वेद विज्ञान की अनुभूति हो जाती है। फिर वो किसी के साथ या तो चीटिंग करेगा, ठगाई करेगा, क्योंकि वो स्वयं तू ही है जिसके साथ तू चीटिंग कर रहा है। ये उस अध्यात्म से एहसास होता है। आज हम सब का दायित्व है, हम सब मिलकर के धर्म को अध्यात्म से जोड़ें, धर्म को नैतिक और चारित्रिक मूल्यों से जोड़ें। केवल मजहब तक नहीं, केवल संप्रदाय तक नहीं। सरल भाषा में कहूं, एक लिफाफा है और एक उसके अंदर रखा हुआ पत्र है। दूसरे शब्दों में कहूं, एक फल है और एक उसका छिलका है। माना कि छिलका भी फल की सुरक्षा करता है, किंतु गुदा और रस एक अलग अस्तित्व है, छिलका अलग अस्तित्व है। उसी तरह से मजहब और अध्यात्म, धर्म और संप्रदाय, इसकी भेद रेखा को समझना जरूरी है। आज संप्रदायों को बढ़ाने के लिए तो हम बहुत कुछ कर रहे हैं, मजहब के लिए मरने मारने को तैयार है, किंतु अध्यात्म को जीना, अध्यात्म को फैलाना, ये सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात है। और यही कठिनाई है कि आज राम की मानते हैं, राम को मानते हैं, राम की नहीं मानते। अल्लाह को मानते हैं, अल्लाह की नहीं मानते। महावीर को मानते हैं, महावीर की नहीं मानते। अपेक्षा ये है, धर्म ग्रंथ सारे अच्छे हैं, महापुरुष सारे अच्छे हैं, किंतु ये भी कहा गया और मैं उसका समर्थन करता हूं कि कहीं कहीं बीच में उसकी व्याख्या करने वालों ने चीटिंग की। मूल ग्रंथ में जो कहा गया उसका भावार्थ कुछ और है। तो सचमुच में बहुत सुंदर विषय पर मैं समझता हूं ये एकमात्र अलीगढ़ इंटरफेथ सेंटर है जो समय समय पर ऐसे सेमिनार करता है। पिछली बार कलबे साहब की शहादत के अवसर पर, और आज भी मैं देख रहा हूं दुनिया भर से इस प्रकार के स्कॉलर जिनको सुनने में आनंद आता है। मैं समय सीमा में बात खत्म करते हुए यही कह रहा हूं, आओ मिलकर बैठे आपस में बात करें, 4 कदम ही सही चलने का साथ करें। यूं तो दूरी से दूरी बढ़ती जाएगी, कभी तो हम खुद से खुद की मुलाकात करें। ये खुद से खुद की मुलाकात, यही खुद से खुदा की मुलाकात। हमारे अजमेर दरगाह के मेरे प्रिय मित्र सलमान चिश्ती साहब भी हैं और दुनिया भर के स्कॉलर यहाँ पर मौजूद हैं। मैं पुनः कहूंगा बंधुओं और बहनों, हम सभी मिलकर के अध्यात्म को आगे बढ़ाएं। धर्म का अर्थ ही है, धर्म का अर्थ क्या है? वो है क्षमा, करुणा, मैत्री, भाईचारा, प्यार, मोहब्बत। ये धर्म है। बाकी सब मजहब है, संप्रदाय है, उपासना की विधियां हैं। अपेक्षा है उस अध्यात्म से हम खुद भी जुड़े, औरों को जोड़े। पुनः मैं एक बार प्रोफेसर नकवी साहब को, अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी को और अलीगढ़ इंटरफेथ सेंटर को बहुत बहुत बधाई, अहिंसा विश्व भारती संस्था की ओर से, जैन धर्म की ओर से, इतने सुंदर आयोजन के लिए। और हमारे ईरान के महान स्कॉलर यहाँ पर उपस्थित है, भारत के कोने कोने से, उन सब का मैं अभिवादन करता हूँ। ओम
Thank you so much, Swami ji. Ba icazet dar dusre cümle man talqis mikunam ba Farsi. ایشون این رهبر جینیا ایشون فرمودن امروز جهان پیش از همه بیشتر نیاز به گفتگو داره. تعلیم جین میگوید این جهان به هم پیوسته است. نقش دین ایجاد اتحاد است نه تفرقه. اساس دین بر محبت است نه بر نفرت. همین فلسفه اهمسا است. تعلیم جین این است اختلاف آرا خوب است اما دل به هم پیوسته باشند. همه ما متحد به دین خود باشیم اما با ادیان و آراء دیگر احترام بگذاریم. همین اساس و جوهر گفتگو میان دین و رمز تفاهم میان ادیان. उपासना या मरासिम इबादी व मनासिक जुज़्व मुहिम दीन است اما دین را نباید در مراسم خلاصه کرد. آنچه روح و دین را تشکیل میده اخلاق و معنویت است. वही इन मसूलियत हमें मास कि इन जोहर असासी दीन रा बीश अज बीश मोरद ताकीद करार बेदीम ता दीन मंशा मोहब्बत बाशत न मंशा नफरत. Thank you so much, Swamiji.
Thank you, Acharya Dr. Lokesh Joshi Maharaj. And now I request another teacher, Archbishop. Now I request another spiritual leader, Archbishop of Armenian Church, Iran. He is a distinguished Christian faith leader, Archbishop, His Holiness Archbishop Sibu Sarkisian. So I request Archbishop Sibu Sarkisian to express your scholarly ideas.
Do you hear me, friends?
Yes, 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 sir.
Yeah, Archbishop.
Good morning to everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
salam. Thank you.
Distinguished scholars, highly esteemed participants in this unique conference. Greetings to all of you, colleagues and participants in this webinar with the theme, The Foundation of Interfaith Understanding, Views of Iranian and Indian Thinkers. It is a great pleasure and honor at the same time to take part in this webinar and share with you few ideas derived from my own experience, since for the last more than 40 years, I have been involved and interested in dialogue, especially in interreligious or interfaith dialogue, because I believe that dialogue is the most fruitful means of reaching, talking, working together. To start, I would like to mention and state three main points which I believe are worthwhile to be mentioned in this webinar. First, we both, Iranians and Indians, are lucky enough because we belong to countries like Iran and India with ages-old and significantly rich and valuable civilization. Both lands are to be and still are cradle of civilization and religions. In fact, both lands include multi-religious, multicultural societies. The Bible mentions Iran as the land of the prophets and religions, Cyrus the Great as the emperor of Persia that shattered people with different religions and also gave them a special permission to freely worship their religion. And this is a characteristic of tolerance of the Iranian society. Nowadays, Iran is encouraging interreligious dialogue, protects the rights of its non-Muslim citizens, thus manifesting the importance of coexistence and witnessing to the fact that we all are the children of one and almighty God. The great Caliph and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, peace be upon him, has said, "We all are brothers, either in religion or by creation." Second, dialogue is God-given gift, and therefore we have to keep this gift close to our heart and work together for the sake of safeguarding this precious world. No doubt that a genuine and relevant dialogue is needed in today's globalized world. Religions cannot live in isolation. Dialogue is an opening to others, living together, thinking and working together. On the other side, dialogue is a learning process as well as mutual challenge. The world and human society have gone through tremendous changes. I believe that the world's future development and increased relationship depends on the ability of religions for dialogue and peaceful coexistence. Thank God that our religions provide us with common foundations as well as common points, elements. In a pluralistic society, we are called to take this opportunity to deepen and purify our faith and commitment. In other words, dialogue is urging us to search for truth. This might be strange, but let's be honest. We know that all religions are bearer of truth, but in different ways. Dialogue as a learning and listening process may lead us to the discovery of inner and deeper layers of truth. On the other side, dialogue could be a genuine means through which we can grow in our faith experience, and thus dialogue will generate hope and confidence. And on the other side, dialogue will lead us to a new kind of life. We are already experiencing dialogue of life. That means moving from dialogue to partnership, from loneliness to togetherness. We cannot live anymore isolated from each other. Therefore, this urges us to move quickly and not slowly towards each other. Thirdly, I reach to my third point, that is, as creatures, we were created by God in his image. We read in the Genesis, when Jacob meets his brother, he says, "To see your face is like seeing the face of God." What a wonderful verse. Can we see in the eyes of our brother the holiness of God and act accordingly? It is true that God is present within each of us. On the other side, God values diversity as well, as he is committed to giving us freedom and this enriches our life and provides us with ever-renewing ability. With this commonality, while living together, we are faced by the challenges of the world. Actually, all religions face more or less the same challenges: poverty, homosexuality, marriage of the same sex, discrimination, devaluation of morality, and etc. On the other side, politically and socially speaking, humanity is suffering from injustice, from the lack of security, and from displacement of innocent people, or the immigration, forced immigration, deportation, which started from the middle of the 20th century. This phenomenon urges the world religions to come together in order to overcome these challenges and in order to build God-feared community and to avoid ethnic and political conflicts. To conclude my very brief intervention, I would like to say that globalization draws people together irrespective of religion, race, or culture. Therefore, we have to find and explore with other religions genuine and reliable strategies in order to live together responsibly and peacefully. And finally, we have to identify major issues of common concern and accordingly act and live. This urges us also to reflect together on the growing uncertainties, ambiguity, in order to trust each other, because trustfulness is one of the keys of understanding each other and working together. So I finished by thanking the organizer and thank you for listening to my humble lecture.
Thank you. Thank you, Archbishop Sibu Sarkisian. You have reminded us the famous sentence of Imam Ali that all people are brothers, either by religion or by creation. And you have very beautifully said that it is the need of the hour to move quickly, not slowly, towards each other. So now we request our host, one of our hosts, Dr. Muhammad Ali Rabbani. Ma ehteraman dar khidmate Dr. Agha Dr. Muhammad Ali Rabbani, Rais Khane Farhang, Delhi 9, taqaza mikunim baraye khutbah sadarat.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good afternoon, His Excellency, distinguished guests. It is indeed a great privilege and pleasure for me to find myself in the midst of Indian and Iranian spiritual leader and the scholar and distinguished participants attending the webinar on Indo-Iranian Interfaith Dialogue, and convey my thanks to Professor Ali Muhammad Naqvi and his center. It is indeed a memorable event for us today that we are going to hear and share value-inspired view of the scholars when there has been a decline of value system and moral value. The concept of dialogue was initially started by the Islamic Republic of Iran a few years back, which was accepted by the General Assembly of the United Nations. I think that dialogue and understanding will surely bring a bright and more promising future for mankind, and conflict problems, and this unity can be solved by the process of dialogue. In view of religions and culture diversity in India, as well as intellectual and philosophical background of Iranian Islamic culture and civilization, the subject of religion dialogue is one of the important points for the cultural relation between the two great nations of Iran and India. In view of the historical background of the religion dialogue that flourished during the Dar al-Shukuk period, recently there have been international conference on inter-religion dialogue between Islam and Hinduism by the Indian Council of Philosophical Research and Center for Inter-Religion Dialogue of Islamic Cultural and Relational Organization, ICRO, and Iran Embassy Cultural House, New Delhi. The modern world, in spite of all its achievement, has created challenges and inconsistencies between religion and civilization that have compelled the thinker to seek solution to these challenges. In the 20th century, for example, various strategies and methods have been proposed to bring religion closer together. One of the most important strategies is interfaith dialogue, which addresses theoretical issue in this area. Also, the history of religions have always witnessed the dialogue and even the more or less peaceful coexistence of the followers of the religion. But what is remarkable and important in this historical period is the kind of view, approach, and philosophical and theological foundation of the converses. The dialogue of the religion in our time has become fundamentally different from what was called the dialogue of religion in the past. The most important feature of the modern discourse is that they are based on one of the most important and newest issue in the philosophy of religion, namely religious diversity. Religion, which has appeared in the different forms, in different language and culture, and with the treasure of the myths and ideas, and has represented sacred and superior reality of the human mind, has provided the possibility and opportunity for dialogue and interaction for human beings. Hence, the issue of dialogue finds a completely new identity. The intellectuals seeks to understand the other side and try to increase their commonalities by rereading each other's spiritual experience. Another point is the interfaith dialogue is an attempt to find common ground between religions. This dialogue will be more profound and effective if it is formed under the influence of mystical conception of religion toward unity in recognizing and reaching the true rules of religions. Among the long list of crises that religion people face today are three: the rejection of the moral and spiritual teaching of religions, apostasy, and the conflict of some followers of religions with the sacred symbols of other religions, have been considered serious and destructive crises, and the need to study and resolve them quickly has been considered. The goal of interfaith dialogue, especially in Islam, is to sympathize with other religions based on common principle and value. In mysticism, which is one of the main common area between the religion of Islam and Hinduism, religions could engage with each other for better understanding, and the purpose of interfaith dialogue in the mystical view is not only to the coexistence of followers of religions, but the goal of achieving a position. It is more sublime that the dialogue of religion is to solve inter-religion problems and create empathy for growth, transcendence, and perfection. Philosophy and mysticism have formed the two basic foundations of Iranian epistemology and Islamic thought. Muslim mystics as a unifying view of entire world and all human beings, and they consider the unity as the base of Islamic cosmology. In the view of Muslim mysticism, Persian poets of Iran and India, the Holy Quran is full of sign and symbol, just like nature and the reliance of the spirituality of Islam and religion in general on mysticism. The spirituality of Islam is essentially mystical. It is based on knowledge and recognition, basically, and spiritual schools seek to remove the veil that keep many men away from the trust and confidence, the trust to the eyes of man. According to the Quranic and Islamic principle, after the victory of the Islamic revolution of Iran, by creating dialogue between different religions and sects, thought to revive the culture of the dialogue and interaction between religions by promoting the dialogue of religion, developing and spread the culture of the peaceful interaction among followers of the religion in and all sides of the country. Certainly, the experience of Iran and India in the field of dialogue, interaction, and coexistence of religion, and facilitate the development of coexistence and dialogue between religion and global peace more than any other country. I hope that today webinar and the presence of prominent intellectual and religion personalities of Iran and India and the valuable presentation will be useful and effective both in the developing relations between the two countries and in strengthening empathy and coexistence of religion. There should be a considerable dialogue between different regions, which is the need of the hour. I'm concluding my addressing with the couple of the Saadi Shirazi, whose line graced the entrance hall of the United Nations. The children of Adam are limbs of one another and are produced from the same substance. When the world gives pain to one member, the other also suffer. Innocence, those who are different to the suffering of the other deserves not to be called a man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Ali Rabbani Saab, Culture Counselor, Iran Culture House, New Delhi. And with your presidential remarks, now the inaugural session of this webinar is concluded. And respected guests, without any break, now we are going to start the plenary session. So for this, I would request Mr. Musa Raza Sahab, IAS, former IAS officer, eminent Indian Muslim intellectual, chairman, South Indian Education Trust, and Padam Bhushan. Mr. Musa Raza Sahab, I request you to join us and present your valuable ideas.
Thank you very much. May I start by Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and the most merciful. First of all, let me thank the organizers of this webinar, especially my friend Agha Ali Muhammad Naqvi, who has always been kind enough to invite me for all such occasions. I also thank Agha Rabbani. I have had a very long association with his predecessors, going right back to Agha Alamuti. I don't know where he is at the moment and what post he holds, but I have always had a great deal of interaction both with the Aligarh University, especially the center, as well as the Cultural Center of Iran for many, many years when I happened to have been in Delhi. Now, because of my interest in women's education, I have shifted to Chennai, where I am presiding over an institution which is teaching Muslim girls, especially, and in general, all girls. We have got 10,000 students and 600 staff, and I devote most of my time to that activity. This dialogue, which we are currently indulging in, is, I think, not a matter of any new idea. This has been going on for centuries in some form or the other. I am always reminded of what Omar Khayyam said, that myself when young did eagerly frequent doctor and saint and heard great argument about it and about, but evermore came out by the same door wherein I went. The point has been very well made by speakers before me who said that having a webinar like this is not sufficient. We have to convert this webinar into some kind of a proactive, some kind of a incentivizing institution which can continue this dialogue not only amongst the intellectuals who are already convinced, but extend it beyond the intellectuals to the common man. Professor Bhatt has given many suggestions as to how that can be done. Aligarh University and the center is eminently placed to carry on this activity. I therefore urge upon both the university and the center to take this idea forward. Long ago, many years ago, a professor of ecumenical theology and the president of the Global Ethic Foundation, Professor Hans King, said, "No peace among nations without peace among the religions. No peace among the religions without a dialogue between the religions. No dialogue between the religions without investigation of the foundations of the religions. That is what we have been trying to do during this webinar. It has been repeatedly emphasized that ultimately, if you look at all religions, basically they teach the same thing. The famous saying, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, has already been quoted several times, and we all know its meaning very well. Ghalib, our famous poet, in one of his Persian couplets said, Saraz hijab ta'ayyun agar berun ayad, che jalwa ha ke bahar kesh mi tawan kardan. If man were to come out of this self-limiting veil that covers his eyes, what glorious revelations he will see in every faith. So all we have to do is to remove this self-limiting veil on our eyes, then we will be able to see the beautiful, beautiful beauties of all the religions of the world. In the 13th century, the famous mystic poet Jalaluddin Rumi in his discourses said, imagine a hall with several lamps of various makes and sizes. One may be made of beautiful earthen material, the other may be made of wood, third may be made of gold, but they are all giving light, and the hall is alight because of the light which they are providing. Can one separate the light of one lamp from another lamp? This is the question which Rumi asked. You cannot separate the light. All the religions of the world have given light, and today's world is lighted because of the various lamps which have been providing light over the centuries to this world. I am reminded of the famous story of Nizamuddin Aulia, the famous mystic saint of Delhi. Once he went up to his terrace on the banks of the Yamuna river. He saw the men and women were taking a dip in the Yamuna waters and praying towards the rising sun. He was so impressed, he declared, Har qaum rast rahe, har qaum rast rahe, dine wo qibla gahe. Every people is on the right path in their faith and in the direction of their prayer. Now, Nizamuddin Aulia was in line with what the Quran had said many, many years before. Quran had said very clearly, Laisal birra an tuwallu wujuhukum qibla al-mashriqi wal-maghrib. Righteousness does not lie in your turning your faces towards the east or towards the west. Muslims should not just believe that by turning their face to the east or to the west or performing the ritual in the mosque, they have completed their religion. That's what the Quran says. Righteousness does not lie in merely turning your faces to the east or to the west. Righteousness lies in faith and doing good deeds. Basically, that has been the teaching of Quran many, many years ago. Therefore, we have to, if we are going to start a dialogue, we have to start by accepting that all religions, as Nizamuddin said, are on the right path. Every people is following their own philosophy, their own religion, their own belief. And all these beliefs have been lighted the world over the centuries. We always go around teaching people that you should tolerate everybody. This word tolerance is somehow or other very, very awkward to me, because tolerance means something which you are doing reluctantly. You tolerate something which is obnoxious. You tolerate a bad smell. You tolerate an awkward situation. You tolerate something which is not very good. That is not a correct approach. We should not say that we tolerate all religions. We do not tolerate all religions. As the chief rabbi of UK, Jonathan Sachs, wrote a book called Dignity of Difference. We should recognize the dignity of difference. My religion is my religion. Hinduism has got its own rituals, its own beliefs, its own path. Christianity for centuries has been following its own path. All of these religions have got a dignity of their own. Therefore, what is the correct way of looking at things is to recognize this difference and to recognize the dignity of that difference, not just to tolerate them, respect them, and believe that they are all following their right direction. Therefore, I think that the occasion of starting this webinar and holding it on the right day and right time is a great achievement on the part of both the center as well as the Iranian Culture House. I thank both of them for having held this timely function, this timely webinar, and I hope more such webinars will be held in the future. I thank my friend Agha Ali Muhammad Naqvi for having invited me to be present. I have been suffering from a heavy cold. That is why you might have heard my voice in a slightly different manner. I hope you will accept whatever I have said, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Musa Raza Saab. Now I request Swami, His Holiness Swami Hari Prasad Ji, President of Shri Vishnu Mohan Foundation, Chennai, to express his spiritual ideas, to offer his spiritual ideas. Swami Hari Prasad Ji.
Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. I'm very happy to be here in this group. When Professor Naqvi called me and told me that the Iranian Culture House as well as the AMU's Center for Interfaith Understanding were organizing this program, I was very happy to be there. And from Vedic times, we have been connected with Iran. And from Vedic times, India has been upholding this idea of that there are many paths to God, and each of them is valuable and sacred. So, so this is something which is very basic to the nation and to its culture. So we find Indians in other countries also upholding this idea. Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. There is one reality, and the wise people talk about it in different ways. So my guru, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, she was once talking to a devotee. He was a Muslim, his friend was a Tamil Brahmin, and another friend was a Chinese Catholic. And Sadhguru said that self-realization, God realization is like a mountain peak. There are many paths above, and the person on top knows that there are all the paths lead to the summit. All are arduous, all are difficult, all need hard work, but they lead to summit. But the people at the base of the mountain who don't climb, they fight about the paths, which is better. So this is something which is the difficulties which come between peoples, whether they are, it's a matter of religion or it's a matter of community or whether it's a matter of countries, it's essentially is that the feeling that I am better than you. It is as childish as that. Like a small boy who says, my brother is bigger than your brother. My brother can beat you. Your brother. We've seen that in the story about Tom Sawyer. And we have all laughed at it. But when you look at it and see, this is what is happening. This holding on to an identity, a mythical identity, which will ultimately just bring us closer and closer to ignorance. We think we are unique, but when we look at things as they are, we are far from being unique. We are in no ways different from other people. The same problems that beset them beset us. The same happinesses which await them await us. So, so it was given to Sri Krishna to explain to the world that whichever way men approach me in that way, whichever way people approach me in that way, do I fulfill them? It is my way which people walk upon in every place. Then that he also said, whatever God they pray to, I make their faith strong. I may make their faith strong. He doesn't say they must follow me. But he says that I make their faith strong. So this is something which is the basis of India. I'm sorry, I think I've been muted.
We all are hearing.
Okay. So then, so that is the basis. The basis of the other person has also a viewpoint. The other people are as valuable to God as we think we are. So Sadhguru said, when I went on the road today, I saw some donkeys. It's very difficult to see donkeys in the city. And I felt so happy to see that. I felt as happy to see them as I would be to see an old friend. because they are also God's creatures. Knowledge is Abhedarshanam, seeing the world without difference. It doesn't mean that all differences disappear, but not discriminating against people on basis of our likes and dislikes. So when that comes into our lives, that concept that other people are also ours. I am nijaha paravo veti jananam lagu chetasam. It's people, small-minded people who feel that these people are mine and those are not. But to the goal, to the noble-minded, the whole world is gathering of the children of Mother Earth. So that is the most wonderful thing which we can always think of. When you think of that, when we see ourselves as making mistakes, when we look at ourselves and see we can make mistakes, we see that other people also can mistakes and do mistakes, and we can understand that. About 10 years ago, a disciple of the ashram, a devotee of the ashram came and said that he had in his office, he thought he was alone, and he made some casteist remarks about his boss. And he was so afraid, my superior officer about whom I have said all these things. And suppose he comes to know about what will I do? So I said, pray to Sadhguru, pray to God that this should not have happened. And understand that you are having this fear, this worry because of your wrongdoing. So then he came back and said after some time, no, by grace of God, he didn't say, Sadhguru's blessings are there. He has not heard me. Sadhguru Ma has been very kind and he has not heard what I said, and nobody has told him also. Nobody appears to be knowing about it. So I said, then what will you do now as a Thanksgiving? What's the offering you want to give? He said, do you want me to say Vishnu Sahasranam? Do you want me to go to the temple? Should I make some offering, some specified offering? I said, that's all external. I wanted to do an internal offering. Promise that you will not make remarks like this, casteist remarks about anybody in your life. That was a big sacrifice. Sadhguru talking about a person who had, he said that Sadhguru had said, it is easier to give up your life for your country than to live your life for your country and your religion. You can give up your life for your country and your religion. That is something which happens fast. In an emotional moment, it can be done. But to live a life of sacrifice for that country, for that religion, that means you got to transform yourself. The small I has to become a bigger I. So we should stop thinking of myself as me, but thinking of ourselves as we. When we do that, then people come together. Loka Sangraham, Vasudeva Kudavagamam. All these things happen when we stop thinking of that small little self which is here and think of ourselves as we. So with the grace of God and the saints who have inspired both the countries, may we all follow that glorious path and reach a state of bliss, meditative bliss, as well as bliss also in this world. Shri Sadhguru.
Thank you, Hari Prasad ji. And now, without any delay, since we have tight time schedule, I request Haji Sayyid Salman Chishti, His Holiness Haji Sayyid Salman Chishti Sahab, Gaddi Nashin, Dargah Ajmer, Dargah Ali Ajmer Sharif, Chairman Chishti Foundation Ajmer Sharif, to join us and kindly put your scholarly ideas on the topic.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيد المرسلين ورحمة للعالمين. Greeting of peace, adab, salam alaikum, and our respect and regards to all the elders here who have gathered from all respected faith perspectives, faith leaders, academics, scholars, Swamiji, who just spoke very dearly, and who have spoken before him as well. They are all our common elders, I would say, not common friends, but common elders that we always share and learn, right from Musa Raza Sahab to Professor S.R. Bhatt Sahab to Professor Ali Naqvi Sahab, and all the elders here who have spoken earlier as well. So it's a great honor again and again as the platform for interfaith dialogues, which have been uh, accomplished, envisioned in a way that the results are so fruitful that even despite of this challenges of COVID and our restriction towards moving out, traveling, we are still able to come on this platform and share and learn from each other on such an important dialogue initiatives. So I congratulate Professor Ali Naqvi Saab and the entire team for putting together, along with the Iranian Culture House, the embassy, and the organization in Tehran, who have envisioned the important aspect of highlighting the spiritual friendship and the historical ties between India and Iran. As the respected speakers and scholars and faith leaders before us has shared and envisioned the importance of not only highlighting the historical ties, but also the present momentum that goes between India and Iran, the people to people, heart to heart connection, Sina Basina connection that we have, and our common and shared spiritual heritage, because both Iran and India is based upon deep spiritual understanding and deep spiritual longing and belonging for the divine creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's that common binding factor which has gone beyond the present day borders restrictions. As we know, the modern world and the names and the borders that have come up. But if we go back into the history, whether it was in the 15th century to the 11th century and beyond, truly it's like a time immemorial that we can trace back our spiritual friendship and the historical tie. And as coming from Ajmer Dargah Sharif at the feet of the Awliya Allah, the great Sufi saints, the Master Hazrat Khaja Muinuddin Chishti Hasni wal Hussaini radiallahu anhum. It is an equal honor that we can share the words coming from Hazrat Khaja Gharib Nawaz, whose region is from the land of Khorasan, Sanjar, and then all the way from Medina to Hindustan to Ajmer Sharif. Because in those days, in the 11th century, truly it was when the mystics walk out, they truly walk in any direction in the true spirit that in Quran it's mentioned that the whole world is one family, and in the Indian spiritual context where it says Vasudeva Kutumbukum, which is again symbolizes the whole world is a part of a family, and we have to look at that not on based on nationality, on language, on region or religion, faith perspective, but as truly as the single source that we all come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we all return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Hazrat Khaja Gharib Nawaz has says, that there are only two entities. One is the Khalik, the creator, and the other is the makhluk, the creation. And with unconditional love towards the makhluk, we can seek closeness, kurbat to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kurbat-e-haq. When we dedicate our life, our work, our words, our akhlaq, our behavior towards truly serving all of creation, not only us human beings. Of course, us the human beings are the ashraful makhlukat, but at the same time, when we talk about makhluk, it is also the trees, nature, birds, animal, the earth that we walk upon. And one of the important teachings of Hazrat Khaja Gharib Nawaz, Moinuddin Chishti Hassani wal Hussaini, is that if one has to seek closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the creator, develop three attributes of the nature into one's being, which is sun-like grace, suraj jaisi shafqat, river-like generosity, dariya jaisi sakhawat, and earth-like hospitality, zameen jaisi khatir tawazu. So these teachings really found the foundational message of the Chishti Sufi order, which has been so prevalent, so as a mass movement among the hearts of the people. And the shared culture that we have between India and Iran. I was fortunate to spend some time in Tehran between 2014 and 15. About 3 to 4 months I was there in Tehran at Makhtab-e Khuda for Zaban-e Farsi. Some research work that we were doing for the Chishti Tariqa and a lot of literature which has been deeply rooted into Zaban-e Farsi. And also we have to acknowledge that the Zaban-e Rasmi of Hindustan for over 600 years was Farsi, the Persian language. So it's the language and the music, the literature, and the spiritual understanding is really, even today, whether we go from north to the south, or in Kashmir as well, from Kashmir to South India, or from Rajasthan to Bengal, we see deep resonance of the literature that has impacted the spiritual grooming and wellness of Indian subcontinent from hundreds of years. And Persian has played a very, very important role in connecting the people of India as well as Indian subcontinent. I would like to share this important fact that even today, that some of the elders, like from my grandfather's time, who are still there into their 80s or 90s, they still calls me up and ask me some of the Persian risalas, because now in today's time, all the Persian literature or the newspapers or the books or the magazine which was printing so prominently have ceased to be printed now. So they call up and ask us that if you have any old Persian literature or anything that we can read, because they really miss the language. And I'm talking about not only Muslim, I'm talking about the Sikh community, I'm talking about the Sindhi community, I'm talking about the elders of the Hindu community, because this was not a language which was restricted to a particular religion or a community. This was a language which goes really beyond the boundaries. And today it's really important, especially for the young and youth, to revive such ties which should not be seen with the prism of your faith or your belief or your practices, as earlier Swamiji has said beautifully, that our practices is not our, it's a very integral part of what we believe, but that's not only the aspect of our faith perspective. It is extremely, extremely wide. We don't have to restrict ourselves to our practices, because the faith and the religion goes beyond the practices, the formal integration of our way to connect to the divine presence, which is omnipresence, which is not mahdud, which is not restricted to only the places of worship. It is La maka. There is no specific place where the divine attribute is seeked. It can be seek in a broken heart. It can be seek on any drach. It can be seek on anywhere where we have the truest of the noble intention, niyat al-husna, and a way and will to seek the qurbat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based upon the niyat al-husna. So I think with this Indo-Iranian Interfaith dialogue, as all the other faith leaders who are together here, and we have been meeting with them regularly, they have also stressed upon the time of in today's time, because we have so many challenges, and post-COVID-19, the world has seen such a pandemic of unprecedented degree or in recent generation. So what we really we look at this, is it a sign, is it a blessing in disguise that the world was completely running towards a blind or false goal where we have achieved none of our blind pursuit towards the materialistic world? A virus which is not even seen with the eyes has put down the whole world onto his knees. And there's a famous saying of Hazrat Ali karamallahu wajhu, that when the world pushes you toward on the knees, so remember this is the time to pray to Allah. So when we are all together on our knees, and we know that the higher up one is the only one which is the provider of all sources, the all light that comes from one. And there is only one truth that we all believe as faith practitioners, that there cannot be two truth. So this fake or false narratives, when some of the political ideologues or some of the uh, organizations or the groups which kind of create the division between faith, between common people on the lines of faith and religion, that must be denounced in all sense. And this is a great opportunity that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us again. We might not get a second chance. This COVID is a sign that we have to shun all the false narrative. We have to unite as a human family, and we have to stand by each other. It has taught us so many things. We have seen during the lockdown, we have seen how people have served each other without even having this fake consciousness of which community or which mohalla or which neighborhood they are serving. Everybody was out there, whoever had the means, whoever had the resources to serve. When people were stuck up in their homes, in their communities, in their lanes, people reached out. Not only in India but around the world. We have seen that how that which was seems to be impossible before the COVID thing happened. There have been so many prejudgment. There have been so many stereotype of communities. There have been so much of things which was going on into the social media, which really, even it make untouchables each other. The different communities were made untouchables on the social media venom which was spread out. And if we go back to that, what we were before the COVID, in terms of having that consciousness of differences among what we are as a human family, I think that would be the biggest loss of this pandemic. Of course, we mourn the losses of life that have been lost during this pandemic. The economy has been collapsed. The jobs that have been lost. The biggest loss would be if in the post-COVID world we go back to what we were pursuing as the blind materialistic pursuit. एक दुनिया की तरफ जो एक अंधी भागदौड़ थी, जिसमें हमें ये नहीं पता था कि हमारा जो सीधा हाथ है, what our right hand was serving and what our left hand was doing. And these are the basic aspect of when we conduct ourselves into this dunya. This is what we have learned from our great imams. This is what we have learned from our Nabi Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is what we have learned from our awliya, the saints, the Sufis, the mystics who have walked the earth, the gurus, the rishis and the yogis who have stayed away from any political stages, but always with the commoner, with the people. And this is the time that we have to not only sit within to our khanigahs, into our zawiyas or our ashrams. we have to move out and create this awareness. It is so important to be able to have this dialogue and communicate with everybody who's here and beyond, because we know that each and everyone who's part of this conference, they have hundreds and thousands, millions of followers behind them. And if we can share some of the messages that we have translated here, I think that would be really a success of such dialogue. That's our duas from Ajmer Sharif, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly unites our heart without any borders or without any conscious differences of us and them. Because at the end of the day, we know that inna lillahi wa inna raji'un, that we come from Allah and we return to Allah, and that's the journey. And we pray that Allah put us into that path, that we truly are able to serve the purpose of our own creation, because every soul has a purpose of its own creation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that iman, that jazba, that himmat, and the spiritual benevolence to continue that in the lights of the awliya, the imams, the salihin, and the anbiya, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakallah, Professor Ali Naqvi Saab, entire team, and all the other organizations for keep bringing us together. That's really keep the morale high. And we know that these dialogues will truly result in active, practical actions, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Sayyid Salman Chishti Sahab. I repeatedly, very humbly, I'm requesting all the participants, please conclude within 10 minutes due to our tight time schedule. Hala ma khahish mikunim az yaki az mehmanan Iran در خدمت آقای دکتر باقر طالبی دارایی از دانشگاه ادیان قم که تشریف بیارید و بر این موضوع سخنان ایراد بفرمایید. آقای دکتر باقر طالبی دارایی.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله آل الله. I also express my deep appreciation to the organizers of this webinar, and also I thank to those speakers with their touching speech on the topic, especially the philosopher, Dr. Prof. Bahat, if I spell his name correctly. My speech is on, based on sociological view and an inquiry on the critical understanding of interreligious dialogue in Iranian experience and mentality. It is more than 30 years that attending interreligious meetings and symposiums have been on the agenda of some of the Iranian religious and social institutions. Those who have been and are still active in this area, as well as different approaches they choose, are an important source of analyzing in terms of their knowledge and experience. This research, which I have done with my PhD students, which is now, he is a doctor on religious studies. So we did a very good sociological research based on field studies. So this research seeks to understand the knowledge and experience of the activities of the area and the critical interpretation of interreligious dialogue, and to provide a systematic analysis of it by constructing and systemizing its respective themes. Therefore, the research has been conducted with a descriptive analytic approach and qualitative method. For this purpose, along with theoretical findings, we have tried to collect empirical data using semi-structured interview, the sampling method in purposeful and theoretical saturation saturation citation is an interview with the 15 activities in the field. I mean, 15 Iranian activists in the field of interfaith dialogue. We already interviewed them and analyzed what is their experience and their knowledge about the interfaith dialogue. So I give a short report, and if anyone interested, then he or she can refer to the main paper. Analyzing the finding, it became clear that the critics did not pay close attention to the religious and denominational origins of the subject and were neutral in their critical analysis. Hence, their view to the religious other. This is very important, a special expression while we are talking about interreligious dialogue. The religious other. And the dialogue is meta-religious, and they acknowledge the views and the ideas of this field in political and cultural terms and analyze them on the framework. In this approach, originally is with religious other, and the theological pluralism viewpoint is governed on the ideas. Hence, dialogue with religious others is not considered to be religious, but as ethical based subject. So this is very important. This is based on the some of the Iranians who participated in dialogue. They critically view what they have been done in 30 years. So they achieved this point, and they arrived at this point that says that through the dialogue with religious others is not considered to be religious. It means theological or to be apologetical or something like this, but as an ethical-based subject. It should be ethical-based subject or moral-based subject. Through dialogue, critics do not seek to prove legitimacy, but consider their action as a means of looking at another according to moral standards, acting on ethical imperatives, and sharing and generalizing ethics in controversial topics. So according to the critics, the networking of societies, now we are as a network between Iran and India, we are talking on a webinar, which I mean, it shows that how connected we to each other and by network of societies. So the network of the society, the attention to the ethical rationality. So we all saw that how the speakers of this webinar are talking about ethical rationality, not religious theology, not religious apologetic ideas. Most of them are talking about ethical rationality. So ethical rationality is important while we are entering a dialogue. So the ethical judgment, we have to have ethical judgment to other religious others, not theological judgment to religious others. And the expansion of rationality in the social and collective areas of Iranians. And as our honorable guest philosopher, Bahat, and also other speakers emphasize that we have to move from the dialogue among intellectuals to the social and collective arenas of the societies, to the mass, to the people. So the rationality, the rationality of interfaith dialogue should be extended to the social and to be extended to the social mass as well. So these things are among the factors that have led to the spread of the moralism for the issue of interfaith dialogue in Iran. So we are faced now with different approaches to the interfaith dialogue in Iran. After 3 years of experience and gaining knowledge of our experience. So moralism or basing interfaith dialogue on moral ideas, not theological ideas, not on apologetic ideas. So interfaith dialogue in Iran is turning a good turn, or better to say, is faced with a very important cultural and epistemological turn in Iran. And contrary to the traditional beliefs that are loyal to religious texts, one of the speakers said that religion are not just texts, but as Professor said, that Professor Bahat said, we should we should not study of religion, but about religion, even above religion. So we should go above the text and understand what is the text brings to the mass of the people. So, and give importance to the role of religious, and also it gives the importance to the role of religious government in interpreting religious text. If we base our understanding of coexistence based on a text, only text, then everyone can interpret the text for themselves, for himself, for the benefit of government or for the benefit of everyone. So critics believe that this led to a political bias in the issue of dialogue and has created a serious weakness in the structure of government to make a decision about the other religious other and the nature of dialogue. So the critics try to separate the dialogue from theological perspective and believe that putting aside the theology is the first step in dialogue. They believe that this view to the role of theology leads to the emergence of a sound understanding of one another and dialogue for the human being. They criticize the bias in jurisprudential beliefs and consideration and consider the unidimensional thinking and disregard of the various human demands as major pitfalls for the failure to bring about social and religious justice in society and reason for the creation of violence. In their view, jurisprudential monologue rather than a synthetic approach is in this regard has led to the decline in tolerance in Iranian society sometimes, not all the time, but now we face a tolerance toward religion. But one of the speakers here said that we should not just have tolerance to the others, but have co-understanding to the others. This is also true. This is also based on Iranian understanding of interfaith dialogue as we search, as sociological search among those who were participating in different interfaith dialogue, which have been organized by our center. They insist on this fact that the focusing on self-criticism, reviewing the religious other in religious interpretation, revising understanding of religious plurality, seizing the meaning of the invitation, which is a Quranic notion, as well as attention to the difference in the new concept of dialogue and making a distinction between dialogue and controversy in the public domain. This is very important. If we do not make difference between dialogue and controversy and extend it to the public domain, then the controversy will lead to the fight with each other. So the theological system is the set of measures by which one can change the position of traditional theory of dialogue and define it in the context of sociological studies of interreligious dialogue. This was what we searched according to the interview among those 15 activists, Iranian activists in the interfaith dialogue. Thank you very much for your listening, and sorry if I do not save the time. I think I try to finish on time and not to disturb the other speakers. Thank you so much for your listening.
Thank you, Dr. Baqir Talibi Darai Sahab. Now, after the speech of Dr. Baqir Talibi Darai, without any delay, I would request His Holiness Swami Virupaksh Ji from the Foundation, Art of Living Foundation, to please join us and express your ideas. Swami Virupaksh Ji, His Holiness Swami Virupaksh Ji.
Namaste and good evening to everyone. Honorable dignitaries, eminent religious leaders, thinkers, theologians, and such a beautiful panel here and varied views, beautiful views coming up in this webinar. And I'm coming to you live from the Art of Living International Headquarters in Bangalore. And it's so beautiful to see such varied views from across the world. And these varied views, this diversity is what strengthens our very purpose in life. It's so amazing to see that all of us come from the platform of faith. Yeah. So we have our beliefs, we have our traditions, we have our customs, we have our culture, and all these things, they strengthen our faith. And all of us sitting here, we come from that platform of faith. A very beautiful contribution from India for several centuries has been this very concept of faith. In the Indian philosophy, there's a very beautiful aspect which says that there are three types of faith, largely, broadly. One is faith in the unknown, having faith in the unknown, in the unseen, or in a higher power. The second one is the faith in oneself. And the third aspect is the faith in the goodness of others. Now, the third one is a very beautiful foundation, I would say, for interfaith harmony, for interfaith dialogue, for interfaith practices and actions. The faith in the goodness of others. Now, it is a very well-known fact that several centuries ago, people came from Iran and they were welcomed in India several centuries ago. That was one of the points of faith in the goodness of others. And I would say that this one particular value is so important even today. We've all come together today because we have that faith in the goodness of others, which is why we are able to sit and listen to all the divergent views. We are able to listen to all the meeting points that may be there even amongst the divergent views. So this faith in the goodness of others is something that needs to be nourished, that needs to be cultured in all our nations, both in India and in Iran. We need to strengthen this even more further, the faith in the goodness of others, especially amongst the youth today. It's so beautiful. All experienced people are sitting here. But it would have been really nice if we were also had a perspective of young people in both the nations, putting across their views on interfaith harmony. Because today, it is our future generation which is going to take this relationship forward. The relationship between Iran and India, between two very ancient cultures and heritages of the world. The ability to appreciate multicultures. We need to bring about that education of multiculturalism, of pluralism in our young people today, across the world, across boundaries. And this is what I believe will strengthen the spirit of interfaith harmony, will strengthen the spirit of interfaith dialogue. We all believe that, yes, friendship between nations, strengthening people-to-people contact is very critical and is a continuing process. But a very important point we need to note here is the friendliness between people. Friendships may come and go. Friendships come, friendships break, friendships are temporarily suspended, sometimes between nations, between societies, between people. But friendliness is a beautiful quality of humanity. And this is intrinsic to every human being. So I would say the qualities of friendliness, the quality of seeing faith, having the faith in the goodness of others. And the third quality is imbibing the appreciation of different cultures across the world. I would say these three are really important to help people to move not just from tolerance. So many of our esteemed speakers spoke about tolerance. I would say these three values should help us move from tolerance to acceptance. This is one of the principles that I've loved when Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Ji, who founded the Art of Living, I've heard him speak very often saying, let's move from tolerance to acceptance. I think that would be quite a benchmark and quite a strategy, a way forward to strengthen interfaith between societies, between religions, between countries. I think that would be the cherry on the cake as far as interfaith harmony is concerned. It's so beautiful. We've been in India, we are so used to living with so many different cultures within one culture. Our languages are different. Our thoughts, our attitudes are so different in just one country. And that is one of our secrets, one of the secrets of India having survived so many years of rule by other cultures and traditions, so many years of war, so many years of peace, so many years of coexistence. I would say one of the secrets to it is we acceptance, moving from tolerance to acceptance, not just understanding, acceptance, a wholehearted acceptance of people. And that, I would say, is a beautiful hallmark of interfaith harmony, of interfaith dialogue. And with this, I would like to conclude with a thought and thanking the organizers, Aligarh Muslim University, the House of Iranian Culture in Delhi, and many other organizations that have come forward to put this webinar together and to invite us to share our thoughts. And I would think one of the way forward would be to involve youth of all our nations, of Iran, of India. They are our future. And when we involve them, and when we formulate a certain plan of action to move forward in the spirit of harmony, in the spirit of understanding the faith in the goodness of others. This, I think, is so, so powerful for our future generations of both Iran and India and across the world. So with this, I thank you all. And it's so beautiful to listen to such lovely perspectives here on this webinar today. And I thank the organizers, and I thank the Culture House of Iran for having put this together. And I look forward to listening to more viewpoints this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swami Virupakshji Maharaj. And we need to imbibe your golden principle of from tolerance to wholehearted acceptance. Thank you very much. Now we should move to another our guest, Dr. Rasool Rasoolipur from the University Khawarizmi University Department of Philosophy. So I request Dr. Rasool Rasoolipur to please join us and offer his ideas. Dr. Rasool Rasoolipur.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfectly.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Salaam alaikum. My sincere greetings and respect to all participants in this blessed and prestigious gathering and meeting with very brilliant religious leaders from different traditions from India and Iran. And I am so honored to be one of the speakers in this meeting. I'm so happy once again with this actually event can come back at least in the mind to India when I left in 2000. I have done my PhD in Pune University from 1996 to 2000. And then I left India in 2000, never came back to India. So this is actually a very blessed event for me to memorize my good memories from India, from good people of India, and from different traditions and cults and sects in India. As a person who was for 3 years director in general of the Center for Interfaith Dialogue in Iran from 2006 to 2009, I should actually say something about the interfaith activities in Iran that goes back to 30 years ago when the Center for Interfaith Dialogue was not an independent body of dialogue in Iran, but as a small office in the Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance in Iran. But fortunately, by the support of the great leader of Iran, Imam Khomeini, and then Ayatollah Khamenei, the activities, interfaith activities and programs promoted very quickly in Iran, and with different churches and synagogues and mosques, temples, as I have experienced during the years that I was in charge of the directing of that center. We had very good actually experiences from those events and programs. Let me tell you that from the beginning, interfaith dialogues started, as I remember, to just exchanging doctrinal aspects of our traditions. So for introduction, it was good, but later on, we started to talk more theologically and philosophically about our concepts, religious concepts, and to be more familiar with each other. And then we started to cooperate, talking about the new actually aspect of dialogue that I can call it dialogue of life. So we learn much from each other how to exist peacefully with each other. And as the speakers mentioned, India is very good example of this peaceful coexistence of people from different religions and traditions in the world. We are commanded by Quran, Holy Quran, that Quran says in chapter 2, verse 64, that all people of the book come to common word between us and you. So we have to work to learn and know each other and then cooperate. As the speakers mentioned, it is not use and benefit in dialogue that is just for dialoguing. We should think about offering a solution for not only believers, but for all human beings. As one speaker mentioned, for common man. And we, fortunately, we had this very high experience of talking and thinking and concerning about human beings suffering, when today two great religious leaders in Iraq, in Najaf, Ayatollah Sistani and the Holy Father Pope Francis, met each other. I'm so happy that the subject of their meetings and their dialogues was talking about human beings' sufferings, not only in Iraq, but also around the world. So it is the need for our pluralistic and global world to think and act for, as I mentioned, not only believers, but all human beings' sufferings. And I think Culture House of Iran in India, in Delhi, Dr. Rabbani and his colleagues should work more to connect Muslim scholars to Jains, to Buddhists, to Hindus, and the other cults and sects that we have in India, as I mentioned, the biggest community of traditions and religions in the world, and learn about some very unique aspect of their traditions that I think one of them is silence. Words can inspire, but they can also depress. They can give birth to new possibilities, but they can also kill the spirit as well as lead to killing of bodies. Words can heal, but they can also very easily wound. Words can open up relationships or simply close them down. However, dialogue, as Martin Buber says, is not merely the interchange of words. Genuine dialogue can take place in silence, and we can learn more from the Indian religions and traditions that I'm sure, as I mentioned, is very specific doctrine of many Indian traditions, Eastern traditions, is silence. Human dialogue, therefore, although it has its distinctive life in the sign that is in sound and gesture, can exist without the sign. Although words and signs are elements of communication, but in its highest moments, dialogue reaches out beyond these boundaries. Dialogue even occurs between us and stones or walls. To this reality, Thomas Merton, a mystic Catholic, American Catholic, refers when in his poem entitled In Silence, he says, "Be still, listen to the stones of the wall. Be silent. They try to speak your name. Listen to the living walls. In Rumi's school, Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, silence is the sea and speech is like river. The sea is seeking us, so he advises us not to seek the river. So I hope in future, after this pandemic, we have chance more to have connection and learn from our brothers and sisters in Eastern religions, in India, and the big family of Hindu and its children traditions. So we should promote our dialogue from historic, from epistemic, from hermeneutic studies and dialogue to humanistic dialogues. As Martin Buber says, I-thou dialogue, not it dialogue. And I am so happy to hear from Swami Virupaksha Ji that mentioned that the tolerance is not enough. We should go beyond and reach to acceptance of it. It cannot exist in the absence of a profound love for the world and its people. A human being becomes whole, not in virtue of a relation to himself only, but rather in virtue of an authentic relation to another human beings. Thank you so much for having me in this very blessed gatherings, and thank you for the organizers, respected organizers, the Culture House of Iran, and also University of Aligarh. Thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Rasul Rasulipur. Now, I request Professor Abhay Kumar Singh Ji, Director Swami Vivekanand India Culture Center, Tehran, to express his views about the topic. Dr. Abhay Kumar Singh Ji.
Baname Khuda.
I request you to please unmute your microphone, sir.
I hope it's
okay.
audible.
Okay. Perfectly okay.
I would not repeat what has already been said by very learned scholars, but I would, if Professor Naqvi and the organizers allow me, I may begin with what has been talked about, toleration and acceptance. Since I have the topic on the viewpoint of Swami Vivekanand, I may quote from him what he talks about toleration or acceptance. Swamiji said that each religion takes up one part of the great universal truth, spends its whole force in embodying and typifying that part of the greatest truth. It is therefore addition, not exclusion. Our watchword then will be acceptance and not exclusion. Not only toleration, but acceptance. This was uttered by Swami Vivekananda long ago, and he had guided us not to use the idea or the sentiment of toleration, but to really accept it from the very heart. I, again, missing many of the points that I have in my paper, go to one of those very important aspects from Swami Vivekananda's life when he talks about a practical experiment of this sort of an attitude. Swamiji had a concern for the people. He was more of a social reformer, and as he wrote on the 10th of October 1897 to one of his disciples, he instructed him to start an orphanage in which children of all faiths would be admitted, and no attempt should be made to influence the Muslim and Christian children to embrace Hinduism. On the contrary, the children of all religions should be taught the message of humanity, which lies at the core of all major global religions. He further stressed that separate arrangements for halal food should be made for Muslim children. Now, this particular point that I wanted to highlight is to show the personality of Swami Vivekananda, not as just a Hindu saint, a Hindu monk, but a person who had learned the real message of the religion, whether it was Hinduism or any other message. Few important facts in Swami Vivekananda's life deserve attention. First, his scientific and rational thinking. Second, his awareness about the multi-religious practices of his guru, Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans. And third, his wanderings and interaction and meeting the diversity of people in India and West. This was his experience. And then finally, he came to the conclusion, that was his own experience, that there is need of spirituality for individual and society to keep it sane. For the scientific and rational thinking that made young Vivekananda critical of the religion, it never let him accept any tenet without logical evaluation. He advocated experience against superstition, and in this way he led his followers to reach the pristine core of religion. His Paramhan's true realization of the divine by honestly following any religion reinforced Swamiji's view of the truth of all religions. He had no undue for Hinduism nor any prejudice against any other faith. Swamiji's interaction with different segments of Indian society helped him discern the fundamental unity in entire humanity. The griefs and aspirations of all the people were alike. His idea of building a strong nation grew for the sake of people's welfare. And in the particular context, his understanding of the social base of religion revealed that the discord is not among the religions, but among the followers due to their own misunderstandings and other vested interests. Swamiji had said, I quote, "The Lord has shown me that the religion is not at fault, but it is the hypocrites who invent all sorts of engines of tyranny." Unquote. Now, Swamiji's viewpoint on interfaith unity. Elaborating upon Swami Vivekananda's viewpoint on interfaith unity, it may be said that Swamiji was a humanist. Man was a subject and object in his outlook. The divine came next. There was no offense in this outlook because there lay an essential connection between man and divine, the Atma and the Brahma. Human soul is a part of the eternal being. The Almighty resides in all beings of the world. So realization of the self was the recognition of God. Difference in religious practices does not negate the presence of the same soul in all, but nor does it deny the unity of one God. So Swami Vivekananda started from sort of an introspection. This introspection leads one to the roots or the basics, the foundations, the tenets of the religion. And then other aspect later on, I would come to it, is experience by exchange, what we call as dialogue presently. To expound the unity of God, Swamiji went to the fundamentals of religion and their original philosophy instead of referring to the evolved religions. Here he found Vedanta. Hence, Advait became the touchstone and measure of his estimations. He did not despise the dualistic faiths nor the evolved religions of his time. And he has noted, I quote again, the one fact I found is that in all the Upanishads, they begin with dualistic ideas and end with a great flourish to Advaitic ideas. For Swami's perspective of Vedanta, the different religions occupy different strata of the same structure. Quoting from his various speeches, we may note in his own words, all of religion is contained in the Vedanta, that is, in the three stages of the Vedanta. Each one is necessary. The applications may vary according to the different needs, surroundings, and the other circumstances of different nations. The first stage applied to the ideas of the ethnic groups of Europe, Dvait in Christianity as applied to other Semitic group, Mohammedanism. The Advait as applied in its yoga perception form is Buddhism. The Vedanta applied to the various ethnic customs and creeds of India is Hinduism. In context of Advaitism, he wrote in June 1898, if ever the followers of any religion approach to this equality in an appreciable degree in the plane of practical work-a-day life, it is those of Islam and Islam alone. He finds Advaitism in practice in Islam. If Swami Vivekananda had any inclination to criticize any religion, it would be wrong to accept it, because Swamiji was a humanist and next as a social reformer. He appears to be quite akin to Saint Kabir of the Bhakti movement. Like Kabir, who was direct, often terse in his remarks, but always unbiased in his opinions, Swamiji was also outspoken and direct, for which he is often misinterpreted. We know a lot of Kabir's couplets, which meant to rid the society of ills and superstitions by a direct attack with words, and we value them. Now we find in Swami Vivekananda's writings, he was boldly critical of some aspects of the practices of Hinduism, even as he was a Hindu monk. He criticized the over-concern for renunciation and mukti in Hindus, of the treading upon the necks of the poor and the low in name of Hindu religion, or he was indicating to the disgusting social disparity and illogical obsessions. He mocked, our religion is in the kitchen, our God is the cooking pot, and our religion, don't touch me, I am holy. If this goes on for another century, every one of us will be in a lunatic asylum. Now, this quote is an ample proof of his philosophy, humanity, reverence, and rejection. He talks about Hinduism, then he could be critical of any other religion also. Swamiji dwelled on the merits of the religion and decried the demerits in the same breath. He praised Hinduism for its tolerance and acceptance of all. It is quite possible for me to be a dualist and for my wife to be a monist, and so on. One of my sons may follow Christ or Buddha or Muhammad, he proudly said. So social concern was foremost to him. He chided the British for the bad practices introduced in India, saying, I quote, you look about India, what has been, what has the Hindu left? Wonderful temples everywhere. What has the Mohammedan left? Beautiful palaces. What has the Englishman left? nothing but mounds of broken brandy bottles. He told the Christians of America, those who call upon Christ care for nothing but to amass riches. Christ would not have found a stone on which to lay his head among you. You are not Christians. Return to Christ. Needless to say, he received great honor and reverence from the Christian followers. His appreciation for the merits of Islam is well known. Swami Vivekananda said on different occasions, I quote again, "The good alone lives, that alone survives." How could Mohammedanism have lived had there been nothing good in its teachings? There is much good. Prophet Muhammad, by his life, showed that amongst the Mohammedans, there should be perfect equality and brotherhood. As soon as a man becomes a Mohammedan, the whole of Islam receives him as a brother with open arms, without making any distinction, which no other religion does. For India of his vision, Swamiji expressed, for our own motherland, a junction of the two great systems, Hinduism and Islam. Vedanta brain and Islam body is the only hope. Following the views of Swami Vivekananda, it is a mission entrusted to us by the divine to discover the oneness in all humanity and unity of the divine in all faiths. I conclude here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Basingji. Now I request Hujjatul Islam Ali Zadeh Muswi from the University of Religions and Faith, Qom, to please join us and offer your views over the topic.
Excuse me, may I have 1 minute?
Yeah?
This is Talibi. May I have 1 minute?
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
a comment on.
Yeah.
I have a comment on previous
You please, sir.
the thing speech. He said that Mohammedianism or Mohammedan, we Muslims mostly don't say our name as Mohammedans or Mohammedianism. So it is a kind of Western scholarship which named the Islamic or Muslims as Mohammedans. We Muslims do not believe or do not name our religion as Mohammedanism and ourselves as.
Excuse me, sir. This was a quote from Swami Vivekananda's speech. It is not my word. It is the speech of Swami Vivekananda, and this was his words because he spoke in 1893.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And Swami Vivekananda was speaking at a time when the Europe the term Mohammedanism was prevalent.
It is a quotation. It's a quotation. It's not my words.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Abhay Kumar Singh ji. So I think Hujjatul Islam Ali Zadeh Muswi Sahab is not on the panel. Acha, he is present. Thank you. Hujjatul Islam Ali Zadeh Muswi Sahab.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before anything, I thank from the organizers which have held this precious webinar, especially Professor Muhammad Taghi, Ali Muhammad Nagavi, and also the Dr. Muhammad Ali Rabbani. And I have respect all of the guests which have participated in this webinar. Because of the short time which I have, I want to concentrate on the methodology of the interface or dialogue between the religions. As mentioned in this webinar, for example, in the Art of Living and many other movements of Indian movements, we see that they say that we should go through the tolerance and we should receive to the acceptance, that the acceptance is the last, for example, purpose of our relations between the other religions. And before that, I enter in this discussion, I want to say that when I came to India, I saw that all of the religions have live with each other without any problems. And this was very exciting for me that, for example, the Hindus, Sikhs, and other Muslims, all of them with each other. And the thing which was very important and very interesting for me is that no of these religions have reduced their beliefs to have some relations with the others, or they don't have any reduction. That, for example, one religion says, I reduce my beliefs to have some relations with the others. That means without any problem, they declare and explain or present their ideas to the others, and the others also present their ideas to them, and they don't think about that they should reduce their beliefs to have some relations with each other. And I believe that this society, that means the Indian society, can be a pattern or symbol for all of these societies in the world. For example, so I want to start my speak from this viewpoint that unfortunately, when we look at the other society, we see that they try to have some relations to each other, but they unfortunately reduce their ideas or beliefs. For example, they say we shouldn't talk about some of our beliefs to have some relations with the others. So this is, I believe that this is the fault. Why? Because I believe that when we start from the tolerance, then we receive to the acceptance, we only concentrate on local aspects of the religion. And this is not sufficient. Why? Because if we only concentrate on the local aspects of the religions, we don't understand the other useful aspects of the religions. We only start in one level and we don't grow up. So what should we do? We should try to enter to the intercourse or to discourse with the other religions discourse, and we critique each other. That means if we believe that the fact is for example, the fact has a very parcels or things, and every part of the fact is, for example, in for example, the religions. We should gather all of them. And if we only stop at the local aspects and we don't enter to the other, for example, aspects of the religions, we don't understand anything. When I came to the India, I have many dialogue with the different movements here, with the Paramahansa Yogananda, Chinmaya mission, and other Ramakrishna mission, and all of them. And I have learned a lot from them. And we talked critically with them, because under the criticals, we will understand their useful aspects, which we can use in our religions. But in the other societies, we see that they say if we talk about the differences, for example, we don't receive to the unity. They say that if we, for example, precise our differences, we don't receive to the, for example, unification. And I believe this is not okay. Why? Because when we don't enter to our, for example, differences, our enemies will precise these differences. And they, for example, attack to us in this point. For example, they say, for example, they precise and they present our ideas in the other way. and not, for example, in the right way in this situation. So I believe that the scholars of every religions or sects should enter to the critical dialogue. They should try to present themselves, and they also critique the others. Why? Because under the shadow of this dialogue and debates, they will receive to the fact, they will discover the aspects, the useful and the precious aspects of the other religions. But if, and the other, for example, I'm a Shia, and the other brothers are Sunnis, and these are Hindus, these are Sikhs, and like these persons, only we sit and talk about, or for example, local aspects of, or for example, the Holy Quran says, قُلْ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. This is the first step. That means we should find some local aspects, and from these local aspects start our dialogue. But not only local dialogue, we should enter to the critical dialogue. But before that, we should understand and we should accept the differences. For example, every two persons have many differences, and we should accept these differences. With this acceptance, we should enter to the critical discourse with others, and under the shadow of this critical discourse, we will understand the aspects, and I also understand the weakness of my ideas. If the other, for example, give me the critical viewpoints of my ideas, I will understand myself better and I correct my problems. Otherwise, only we see it, for example, and this is the problem. And if we have a pathology for the meetings of the, for example, like these meetings, we see only try to say that we don't have any problems, we should with each other and like these things. And this has some problems. The first one, we say we don't have any problem with each other, but our enemies try to precise our differences. And because we with ourselves don't preserve and present our problems, they explain our problems and they convert our problems in the other ways, and they broke our unity, and they try to have the diversity in a bad method and bad way. So I believe at the first step we should try to understand this. The first one, in the methodological way, the first one, we should accept our differences. The second one, we should try to find some local aspects. And through the local aspects, we should enter to the differences. And we talk about the differences, and we learn from each other many things. For example, with the art of living, I learned breathing. This was very good for me. And from the Chinmaya mission, and like this, I understood the Advaita Vedanta, which is very close to the Wahdat Wujud of the Muslims. So we should try to have some webinars, special webinar, professional webinar in different aspects and different subjects, and we talk critically with each other, and we understand each other more and more, and we understand our weakness. And after that, I believe that after we see very sustainable or permanent unity, and this is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hujjatul Islam Alizadeh Musavi Sahab. Now we are approaching at the end of this webinar. So with the utmost respect, I invite a very senior personality of our country and distinguished Sikh scholar, Dr. Trilochan Singh Ji. former IAS officer, former member of parliament and chairman of National Minority Commission, to please join us and express his views on the topic. Mr. S. Tirlochan Singh ji. Tirlochan Singh ji, can you hear me? तो क्या करें? हाँ.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
आवाज आई?
जी जी बिल्कुल आ रही है perfectly.
Thank you जी. I'm grateful to Dr. Naqvi, the Iranian Culture Center Delhi, and Dialogue from Tehran, that they have provided this opportunity to me to listen to the top scholars from both countries and from different religious heads. Actually, such dialogue discussions are required. We always say that there is a lot of progress in science, technology, but this disputes between different religions, these are also on the rise. We have not yet been able to see to it that there is all peace and tranquility. My purpose today is, first of all, to thank the people of Iran, because this opportunity to me, because the Iranian Culture Center and they have organized this, because there is a historic relations between Iran and Punjab. Actually, Punjab word, the only state in India which is a Persian name, Punjab. No other state in India is having a Persian name, Punjab 5 rivers. So we carry that name. And again, because in Punjab, Islam came through Sufis. This is a historic record that the Sufis came from Iran. And in Punjab, you will be amazed to know that the oldest mazar is near Patiala, a place called Samana. And that mazar is of Mashhad Ali. He was the son of Ali Raza Mashhad from Iran. And Maqbara in Samana, there are no Muslims in Samana. It is the most respected, worshipped place in Patiala district. That shows the relationship between the Sufi saints, Sufis coming. And second, if any one of you has seen Lahore, Data Ganj, Maqbara of Lahore, even if I go to Lahore, I first go to that place. Why? Because it was in the 10th century that Data Syed Ali Hizravi came to Lahore. And he was so popular. And even today, that shows our respect to each religion. The Sufis never criticized or spoke anything against any other religion. Actually, if we go through all texts, anywhere, Old Testament, New Testament, Quran Sharif, Gita, Ved, everywhere it is preached, God is one, God is one. But why isn't there a fight? Why there is a fight? And again, I forgot, the Iran is the first country, Muslim country, they allowed a Sikh temple. Masjid-e-Hindian. The name of Sikh temple is Masjid-e-Hindian. And that is there centuries old. So we are thankful to them that even that people tell me when I went to Iran that the name of Zaidan was changed on the request of the Sikhs. The earlier name was something and they told, and then the name was changed. So my plea today is to all of you that when we discuss and meet like this, we must find examples from different countries, different places, to tell others that how we should cooperate, how all religions preach one God. So I have many examples. Earlier also you know that Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism, was perhaps the only prophet in the world who started the word dialogue. This dialogue word originated from Guru Nanak when he had dialogue with the Hindu saints. Siddh Gosht is the word. There are 3 pages in Guru Granth that is called dialogue. Then Guru Nanak traveled to Makkah. He is perhaps the only non-Muslim allowed to stay for 40 days in Makkah. What for? He went for dialogue. So wherever he went in India, went to all places, all religions, more than 20,000 miles he traveled only for dialogue, so that we should discuss. And he was open. There are in our Guru Granth, perhaps which is the only holy book in the world, which is the interfaith book. In Guru Granth, other than Guru Nanak and other 4 gurus, there are sayings of Muslim saints, of Hindu saints, Brahmins, Dalit, and for me, they are all equal to Guru Nanak. So first interfaith holy book is produced by the Sikhs, where there is the name of Allah, where there is Ram, Rahim, everywhere. We say, Allah Paking Pak hai, shak karo jo dusar hoye. That is what Guru Granth says. So we every time say, the God has different names. No one can claim that name is more. Anybody can name anyone, but God remains one. So that is what we preach. Then second, as I say, example, perhaps you are aware, the Golden Temple, the most respected place for the Sikhs, foundation of Golden Temple was laid by a Muslim Peer from Lahore, Mian Mir. No other example in the world that a Muslim lays foundation of the temple of other religion. So this is called, such examples should be told to everybody so that people learn how we can live together. Now, Guru Tegh Bahadur, our 9th Guru, we are celebrating his 400th birthday. There's only one example that he died for what? There should be freedom of consciousness. He gave his head that we and you all should have freedom to worship as you want. So his message to everyone is that people should be given. That is what Indian Constitution, Section 25, allows preaching of anybody's religion. You are allowed to preach. This is nowhere else that you can preach. There is no restriction. So this is, such examples should be told to everybody. Now during this crisis, when entire world is facing such a big problem, perhaps we the Sikhs are only 2% in India, 2% in India and nowhere, but all over the world, you must have noticed that free food, how we serve to others. Everybody, anybody, any religion, we go and serve on the streets, in the mahallas. Why? We say that everyone, Allah Rahim, one. Koi bhi ho, he is the son of God. So we should preach and tell others. I read a few months back that during Eid in Rishikesh, there was a problem for Muslim because it was raining heavily where to go. The Sikh Gurdwara offered namaz in the Gurdwara premises. This is called interfaith relations. So we should have such examples to tell people how we can embrace each other. The newspapers are always quick to publish, oh, the one man has done this. There's anti-interfaith dialogue stories, but there is no positive stories. So we should encourage, like every scholar has told. So my plea is, for God's sake, we should try to find out how can we go further ahead. I have attended the World Religious Conference twice. Every time we preach, But we should now come forward. What next? What next is how to embrace others, how to help people of other faith and give them full freedom. And freedom of worship, freedom of consciousness should be everywhere in the world. And we, whenever you come to know that some communities, some people are doing bad, we should be the first one to condemn it, not wait for the government to take action. Society should come forward that nobody should do anything which hurts others. So my today, since long you have been, that we are all to come together, preach together. One thing, there should not be religious fundamentalism. That is a very bad. When we preach, we should not denounce others. Guru Nanak said, anybody, God, you are reaching God, you select your path. You go by air, you go by road, you go by ship, it is allowed. We pray for you. Not that we stop you. Anybody can adopt any way of worship, he is allowed. Don't coerce others. Don't preach that yours is better than that. There is no such competition. No competition is of goodness. Competition of brotherhood, not hatred, not denouncing anybody else. That should be banned by us. Please don't sell your religion. Only say good thing, but don't sell it. We are not salesmen. Because we are to reach God and God is one. So my plea, I'm thankful that Iranian Center in Delhi is doing always very useful purpose, very good. We all appreciate. Other countries should also come forward like them, how they invite others, how they try that in Delhi, they provide space, they provide everything. So similarly, I have been to Aligarh University, there are good scholars, good professors, and perhaps they are aware, hundreds of students from Punjab Sikh, they have studied from Aligarh. They are having top position, vice chancellor, all from Aligarh. So we have a common brotherhood and we pray God bless us. There be peace in India, all over the world, and Indo-Iranian relations, which have been very good since century, should further improve. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you, Trilochan Singh ji. I most now towards the end of this. Towards the end of this plenary session, I request most humbly Mr. Najmul Hasan Rizvi Saab, Secretary General M.U.College, Aligarh, and Secretary TMT Lucknow, to join us for the vote of thanks.
Salam and good evening to everyone. It was pleasure spending more than 3 hours in such an august company. Giving vote of thanks on the lighter side before I enter into a formal vote of, I would say that when you serve a sweet dish, after a sweet dish which is having high sweet contents, it's become very difficult for you to carry forward. So same thing is with me, such an august speeches, such an august education has been imparted by the participants here. So I don't have basically words to express my thanks and gratitude towards them. Now taking it up finally on behalf of M.U.College, Aligarh, Interfaith Center, Aligarh, Center of Interreligion and Intercultural Dialogue, Tehran, in Iran, and Iran Cultural House, New Delhi, I would like to thank Almighty to give us this opportunity to host such an august gathering, which was need of our time. This webinar has been conducted very successfully, and very humbly, I would like to thank the chief organizer of this program, Professor Ali Muhammad Sahab, who has really put in a lot of hard work to bring around such luminaries for this session. Best of the faith leaders and the intellectuals have decorated this webinar, both from Iran and India. As we all know, India and Iran, they are one of the most ancient civilizations of the world. And both the civilizations have a history of cultural, religious, and commercial ties with each other. It is very heartening to see that such discourses are being initiated between the two countries with such ancient ties. So we look forward to carry it forward, whatever has been done through this webinar, and things should not stop here. Now, thanking each and every participants would consume more time. Already we entered this session with a good afternoon, and we would exit by saying good evening. So 3.5 hour session has been conducted, and I'm sure at least myself, and I could make out from the other faces, none of us are feeling as if we have spent 3.5 hours in this session. The reason being, it has been so educated, spiritually inspiring, and it was very close to our hearts. Hence, we are not feeling it. So I thank each and every participant who have made this webinar a success. Other than this, I would like to thank our brother Raza Basab, who has meticulously conducted the session. And I would say a big thank you to him as well. Other than this, a lot of backup is also involved, especially the IT team of M.U.College and of Aligarh University of Interfaith departments there, and the support staff. I would like to thank them as well for making this successful. Having said this, a bit about M.U.College. M.U.College is not a normal college or school, but it's an academy. It was founded by Professor Ali Muhammad Sahab and Dr. Kalbe Sadeh Sahab around 25 years back. And one of the core objectives of this academy has been to create bridges and to demolish the walls by promoting spirituality, ideology of a religion in general, and ideology of Islam in particular. So it is again heartening that we are from here pushing this mission and this basic objective of M.U.College beyond across the world through this webinar. Interfaith understanding has always been close to our heart, and it is our mission. And we would always love to take it forward. So much has been said. All religions are talking about only one thing, and that is goodness. All religions, they negate negativity, they negate bad things, and this all the religion is all about. Hazrat Ali has very nicely put up in a very short sentence when he was asked to define Islam. He said, Islam is nothing else but a worship of one God and a service to humanity. What we do with God, it is between us and God, and the reflections are on our interactions with the humanity at large. What is more important is how we interact with fellow human beings, how we help them, how we love them, how we convey our affection towards them, how we serve them. That is very important, and that is the essence of all the religions, and we should try to take that forward. So religion is all about spiritual development and about serving the humanities. Now, faith leaders and intellectuals on this forum have given us a lot of homework to do and to carry things forward. And I think it becomes our responsibility now to carry this forward with due sincerity and with due dedication, what has been taught to us in this webinar, and the preaching should not end with this webinar. Especially, I would say that let us be more tolerant, and let not move from, just not only be tolerant, but we should move from tolerance to acceptance, and from acceptance to appreciation. That is, we should start appreciating other religions. That is more important, because as Mr. Raza has said in his speech, this tolerance is something which you have to tolerate in a, I would say, in a bad taste. More important is this: we should appreciate the good things, and good things are being part of all the religions and all good people, and we should try to incorporate that. Now, moving forward, we should promote peace, love, friendship with our heart, mind, and soul, and there should be no hypocrisy involved in this. What we say, we should show that by practice, by our actions. That is very important. So let us carry this forward. As our Reverend last speaker, Mr. Singh, has said, that our actions should be there, because actions speak much louder than words, and we should put our actions forward now with all the words and all the preachings which we have got. Having said this, I would thank once again all the participants of this webinar, and with this, with due permission of all the participants, I would bring this webinar to a close, and the webinar ends here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Talbe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rasool. Thank you very much.
God bless you. God bless you. Khuda Hafiz.
See you India again soon.
Inshallah, inshallah.
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 Dr. Rasulivar.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
so
yes.
We can meet, we are in Tehran, we can meet sometime.
Okay, sure. Where are you now in Tehran?